सर जय जिनेंद्र।
सर
जय जिनेंद्र पुष्पराज।
सर जय जिनेंद्र सभी को, दीपक जी, हितेश जी, पीयूष जी, सभी को
जय जिनेंद्र सर।
जय जिनेंद्र सर सभी को।
जय जिनेंद्र सर सभी को।
जय जिनेंद्र सभी को।
जय जिनेंद्र सभी को।
Request everyone to come on the video mode.
दीपक सर आए सर।
Yeah, Deepak ji is there. There are two Deepak actually. Yeah, he's here. Sir, Jai Jinendra.
Sir, Deepak ji was the first one to join, sir.
ओ मरम।
Oh, madam, sir, that's the call to punctuality, sir. Time का he has to join, sir. Planning करना पड़ेगा ना पहले, because it is Zoom again. We technically के हिसाब से थोड़ा sound होना जरूरी है. However, we are good at technical, but still we need to check.
Sudhaji, I'll be making you as a co-host shortly.
Okay, Piyush.
Yeah, you are a co-host, so you can unmute yourself whenever you want. JSG, if you can send a reminder message in the participant group.
Yeah, Piyush, I'm sending the same.
पुष्पराज सर, सर आपका थोड़ा टाइम और कंट्रीब्यूशन लेंगे सर, इफ पॉसिबल, टू मेक इट अ लिटिल इंटरेक्ट। नहीं तो क्या है, जूम में एक आदमी अगर बोलता रहे तो बड़ा मोनोलॉग बोरिंग सा हो जाता है। तो अगर आप साथ में रहेंगे तो आपकी पॉजिटिव एनर्जी हम थोड़ा ड्रॉ करेंगे सर।
हाँ ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं, जहाँ हमको मालूम है हम बोल देंगे सर।
आपका मेरे को लग रहा है कि इंटरनेट कनेक्शन इज नॉट स्ट्रांग, रेड बार दिखा रहा है, तो
ऐसा आई थिंक
ऐसा अगर
आई विल चेंज
हुए तो आप वीडियो ऑफ करके ऑडियो ऑन रखेंगे तो स्मूथ चलेगा. वीडियो कंज्यूम्स लॉट ऑफ बैंडविड्थ. विदाउट वीडियो आई थिंक इट शुड रन स्मूथ.
आई विल ट्राई।
Knowing Pushparaj sir to be a very sportive and jovial person, I think we can take a little bit of humor and bring in some lightheartedness into the otherwise serious and boring session.
Actually, recently we got to know that Pushparaj is humorous also. Actually, थोड़ा दिन पहले ही मालूम पड़ा हमको भी. इतना साल हम भी सोच रहे थे कि बहुत स्टूडियस है, बहुत सीनियर बंदे ऐसे लग रहा था, बट अभी तो वैसे लग रहा है कि he is much buddy and very jovial and very knowledgeable person actually.
Absolutely, sir.
Sir, I request all of you to come on the video mode, and we will begin the session in the next 1 to 2 minute maximum.
So we do understand it is a Sunday mode. People are into their own comfort zones. But it's a pleasure to see everyone in the morning with a bright face actually on this Sunday morning. So request everyone to be on the video mode. As the Deepak ji said, if आपका bandwidth अच्छा है, आपका network अच्छा है, तो video mode पे आ जाइए. शंका मत खाइए, because ज़्यादा हम लोग एक दूसरे को पहचानने की भी कोशिश करेंगे. And nice to see everyone has put their names with their places. Actually, जैसे Bangalore है, हमारे पास प्रेरणा जी है जो अहमदाबाद से है. So please rename yourself with your city if you are from different place. जैसे मुंबई से हरप्रीत जी.
I think, sir, we should start. People will keep joining. It's already
Yes,
11:03 now. With the permission of all, I'm enabling the record button, and we are also live in the YouTube as well. I'll share the link of YouTube in the WhatsApp group, which it has been created. Yeah, JSG, over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Piyush ji. So Jai Jinendra, and good morning to all of one and all present here. So I, on behalf of TPF Bangalore, would like to extend a warm welcome to each one of you as we gather here today for decoding Union Budget 2024, where we will have a detailed discussion on impact of Section 43BH of Income Tax Act on transactions with micro and small enterprises, as well as on other latest developments under Income Tax Act. So I would also like to extend a warm welcome to our eminent speaker, CA Deepak Ji Chopra. So Deepak Ji Chopra, I, on behalf of TPF Bangalore, would extend a warm welcome to you. So now, without wasting much time, I would like to call upon Sudhaji Jain to initiate a Mangalacharan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaishi. नवकार मंत्र है न्यारा, इसने लाखों को तारा, इस महामंत्र का जाप करो, भव जल से मिले किनारा, नमो अरहंतानम, नमो सिद्धानम, नमो आयर्याणम, नमो वज्रायानम, नमो लोए सब साहुनम, नमो लोए सब साहुनम, ऐसो पंचण मुक्कारो सब पावपणासनो, मंगलानं च सव्येसे परमं हवै मंगलम्.
Oh,
Omaram. So
Omaram.
thank you, Sudhaji. So now I'd like to call our TPF Bangalore President Hitesh Giria to address the welcome speech.
आर्यदे के चरणों में नमन। टीपीएफ के सॉरी तेरापंथ के अधिशास्ता आचार्य परंपरा को नमन। अनंत आस्था के केंद्र आचार्य श्री महाश्रमण जी के चरणों में शत शत नमन। टीपीएफ के आध्यात्मिक परिवेशक मुनि श्री रजनीश कुमार जी के चरणों में सादर नमन। Today's our speaker, Deepak Ji Chopra, office bearers, working committee, national team, zonal team, welcome you all, and all the participants, welcome you all to today's event for the budget, decoding of budget of 2024. Terapan Professional Forum, an intellectual group which has formed to get attached to spirituality. With the spirituality, we attain a lot of positivity. Of course, when we meet all the other fellow TPF members who are part of different field, actually, we have a diversified fields of professionals, but we all come together as one under Terapan Professional Forum banner, where we have different kind of events happening. One of these events under Knowledge Bank of TPF is this today's budget seminar, what we are trying to do in a webinar kind of a thing. Plus, today we are proud to say that we Bangalore branch have around 820 members. 820 लोगों का ग्रुप है हमारा आज तेरापंथ प्रोफेशनल बैंगलोर एंड कंप्राइजिंग ऑफ अक्रॉस इंडिया 10,800 plus members of Terapan Dharm Sangh under professional category. So today's event decoding budget, most of them must be having thought process के काफी CS ज्वाइन किया है, तो सीए तो एक कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि दीपक जी को चेक कर रहे हैं, चेक करते रहेंगे कि शायद वो सही बोल रहे हैं गलत बोल रहे हैं, बट बाकी लोग काफी सीखने आए हैं, तो काफी लोगों का एक ही दिमाग में रहता है कि ये बजट से हमको क्या बेनिफिट होने वाला है. Of course, being a layman, I can say that we look for only the budget benefit from the budget. Plus, हमारा इनकम टैक्स कहाँ से बच सकता है वो कोशिश करते हैं. Of course, काफी बिजनेसमैन अगर यहाँ पे है तो 43B MSME के अंडर जो 43B का जो सेक्शन लागू होने जा रहा है या हो रहा है, that is a hot topic these days, कि किस तरह से वो 45 डेज या 15 दिन का जो क्रेडिट पीरियड होता है उससे कैसे बचे, या अपने वेंडर से जो सप्लायर है उससे हम लोग ज्यादा क्रेडिट पीरियड कैसे मांगे. So this is one big thing which is going across everywhere. People are speaking about this only. A lot of WhatsApp messages, a lot of rumors, I can say, a lot of positive messages, a lot of wrong messages. We don't know what's happening actually. But एक सही अगर जानकारी चाहिए तो we need to have an expert. So we have today as Deepak Ji Chopra. So who will be telling us a lot things about the budget of 2024 as well as this 43B. Moreover, I feel that let's be positive. Whatever the budget comes, and hope so that you make more income as well as pay the more proper income tax so that we all flourish in a great way. On this behalf, I just conclude by saying that special welcome to our speaker for the day, Deepak Ji Chopra. So welcome you. Amazing personality. We have been connecting him for past 3-4 years. Deepak Ji last year नहीं आ पाए थे किसी कारणवश से, but this year again we have him today. So great to have you, sir. And of course, welcome all the other participants who are part of this event today. And have a great day. Enjoy this budget seminar. Make the benefit of this morning webinar of it Sunday. Hope this webinar gives you a lot of information and a lot of energy, a lot of understanding so that you make your plannings of income tax as well as gain more on the income part and flourish in your life and have a great time. Thank you so much. Over to Jay ji.
Thank you, Hitesh ji and Omaram. So before starting the session and handing over the session to Deepak Ji Chopra, I would like to give an introduction to our eminent speaker. So Mr. Deepak Ji Chopra is a CA by profession, and he is a fellow member of ICAI. He has a strong passion of direct taxes and has been regularly taking classes for students of CS and CA courses. So he has also been a faculty for officers of IT department at Direct Taxes Regional Training Institute, Bangalore. And he is currently serving as a chairman of Direct Tax Committee of KSCAA, that is Karnataka State Chartered Accountant Association. So that's a lot. That's all about our eminent speaker, Deepak Ji Chopra. So I'd like to hand over the session to him. Thank you.
Thank you, JSG. Before Deepakji starts, I would also like to acknowledge the presence of our South Zone President, Mohitji Baid here. Mohitji Baid is our South Zone TPF President. A big omaram to him. Sorry, Deepakji. Over to you, Deepakji. Yeah.
Thank you, Jayji. Namaskar, and a very good afternoon to one and all. At the outset, I would want to thank the Terabanti Profession Forum for having invited me, the office bearers, Piyush ji, Jayesh ji, Hitesh ji, and Pushparat sir in particular for giving me this wonderful opportunity to present my thoughts on Budget 24 as well as the provisions of 43BH of Income Tax Act. Now, as was highlighted, we have two agendas for the day. That is a discussion on Budget 2024 and recent developments, particularly focusing on 43B Clause H, which was inserted into the Income Tax Act by Finance Act 2023, and which is effective now 23-24. We are feeling the heat of that provision now towards the fag end of the financial year. I would, with the permission of the organizers, want to begin my talk with a discussion on 43BH for two primary reasons. Reason number one, Budget 2024 में ज़्यादा कुछ changes हुआ नहीं है. I am not sure how much value addition I would be able to make or how much justification I would be able to make to your time with the discussion on Finance Act 2024. But then 43BH is a provision which has got mass application. It is going to impact every tax consultant, every tax professional, as well as it is also going to have an impact on every business SSC. So it has got mass application and critical implications. So with this in mind, I will begin my talk with a discussion on 43BH. I understand that TPF is a group of professionals which includes tax professionals as well as non-tax professionals. I have in the past had the fortune of addressing students, chartered accountant students, company secretary students wanting to learn income tax. I have addressed tax consultants, I have addressed chartered accountants, I have had the fortune of addressing income tax officers. But then this is the first time that I'm addressing a gathering of non-tax professionals. So I will bear this in mind, I'll keep this in mind, and I will try to keep my talk as simple and as non-technical as possible. But then I would have my guide, Pushparat sir, available with me to point out at any point of time where I've exceeded my speed or I've gone a little too complex with my subject. So Pushparat sir, आपका सहयोग, आपका contribution बहुत चाहिए रहेगा. आपसे energies draw करेंगे to course correct my today's talk and also make this talk I would say break a monologue and एक थोड़ा dialogue kind of I know in a webinar it's not possible to have one-on-one talk with each one of the attendees, but then at least हम दोनों के बीच में अगर कुछ वार्तालाप होता रहेगा तो सबका involvement महसूस होगा. Otherwise it gets a little too boring with one person continuously speaking for 30, 60, 90 minutes on a webinar.
Sir, we are with you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. आप नहीं भी हैं तो हम आपको खींच के लाएंगे. इतना लिबर्टी हम आपसे expect करते हैं. और so with this permission, I will start off with a screen share on 43BH. Somebody from the host has to enable my screen sharing. It says host has disabled participant screen sharing. So if somebody from the tech team can.
One minute, sir. We will get it resolved 1 second. Can you try Deepakji now?
It is still not working, sir. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
You see, make him co-host, na?
No, so he's already a co-host, and in fact, I've now made him a host.
Sir, I think I've actually logged in from two devices. The reason being there is some internet disruption in the area that I'm presently in. So I've logged in from my mobile also. I think the mobile login is what you made me host. You'll have to make me a host on the other login as well.
Okay, so now that the mobile login is the host, can you?
I'll have to do it myself, is it?
Yeah. Can you use that option and then make your thing as a
I'm not sure how this
Yeah,
works.
because your other thing is not a host now. Okay.
Okay, I think I see this. Make host.
Yeah.
I thought if there is some internet issue with my laptop, I would quickly jump onto the mobile log. Yeah, now I can. I believe my screen should be perfectly visible to all now.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so before we begin with a core discussion on today's topic, I think it is appropriate to set some context, particularly bearing in mind that we have a lot of non-tax professionals also attending this webinar. So under our income tax law, there are a set of critical divergences between profit as per accounts and income as per Income Tax Act. That is, the commercial reading of a particular transaction will give you a different profit number, whereas application of income tax provisions on the same transaction will give you a different income number. Well, let me try to explain this with an example. Let's take an example of, let's say, Section 10AA. Right? Section 10AA in simple words tells you that if you're an export-oriented unit carrying out operations from an SEZ, fulfilling a set of conditions, then your entire income shall be exempt from tax. Now, in case of such a unit, when you draw up the profit and loss account of that unit, you will find that P&L account is disclosing a profit of, let's say, 1 crore. But on the same set of transactions, when you draw up an income computation statement, that income computation statement is going to give you a nil number as taxable income. So profit as per income tax act is going to be nil, whereas profit as per books of account is going to be a different number. So this is a case of divergence of income. We have cases of divergence in expense also. A classic example that I can give you is for, let's say, the erstwhile Section 35 that we had. So you make a contribution to a certain scientific research association, you pay 100 rupees to the association, you will debit 100 rupees to your P&L account, but you will get a deduction of 200 in your income computation statement. So that's another example of deviation between book profits and income tax profits. 43B is one such provision which creates a divergence, a deviation between the expenses as per your books of accounts and expenditure that you are allowed in your income computation statement. The 43B is a pretty lengthy section. It gives you a host of items, a list of expenses to which it is applicable. It starts with clause A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and now a newly inserted clause H. Items A to G are not our point of discussion today. That's not something that we are going to worry about today. The point of discussion today is our clause H, which got inserted by Finance Act 2023. The Bare Act text of the clause is in front of your screen, but don't worry, I'm not going to trouble you with a read of the Bare Act provision of the clause. I'll try to simplify this in simple English terms. In simple English terms, what 43B clause H is trying to tell you is that, hey, see, if you've had any transaction, if you purchased any goods or services from a micro or small enterprises, and if you fail to make payment to such micro or small enterprises within the due date given to us under the Micro and Small Enterprises Development Act, MSMED Act, then that expenditure shall be disallowed for the purpose of your income computation. That is, although you might have debited that expenditure, although you might have incurred that expenditure in the given financial year, but when it comes to income computation, we will not give you any deduction for that item of expenditure. This is what we in our income tax parlance call a case of disallowance. To give you a very simple example, let's say I have bought 1 crore worth of goods from a micro manufacturer. I would have debited that in my P&L account. That would have been considered for my profit computation in my commercial books of accounts. But when it comes to income computation, if the 1 crore that I owe to my micro manufacturer, if the 1 crore is not paid within the due dates, that entire 1 crore will be disallowed or it shall be added to my income. मतलब 1 करोड़ मेरी इनकम हो जाएगी एंड उस 1 करोड़ के ऊपर मेरे को 30 लाख रुपए टैक्स भरना पड़ेगा. ये क्या बात हुई? तो 1 करोड़ का permanent नुकसान हो जाएगा. Fortunately, this is not a permanent damage that we are creating. The act goes on to say, if in a subsequent financial year you are making a payment to that micro manufacturer, we will give you a deduction for that 1 crore in that subsequent financial year. I know it's going to be a little harsh on some of the non-tax professions. That's why we will try to understand this in a little more easier way with the help of a bunch of illustrations. So we have 4 scenarios in all. This possibly, to my mind, covers up all possible scenarios that you can encounter with regards to this particular topic. Right? Here is where I'll take assist by the help of Pushparaj sir. So Pushparaj sir, I will read out the cases. We'll together try to understand what should be the implication of 43B on each of these cases. You're with me, sir?
Yeah, I am with you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, Deepak sir, before this, can we just let us know our audience what are micro and small definition?
We will come to that, sir. We will come to that. There's a separate set of slides devoted to that. It's a critical understanding. I understand. We'll take it in bits and pieces. We'll try to understand the overall impact, the macro impact of 43B, and then we'll drill down into what is a micro enterprise, what is a small enterprise, how is the due date to be computed, what are the different scenarios for due dates. We will come to it in pieces, sir. So this is just an attempt to have a macro level understanding of what is the implication of 43B. So case A is a case where I have bought goods on 2nd of, it could be services also, not necessarily goods. So there is a supply that I have purchased on 2nd of Feb 2024 from a micro or a small enterprise, and I was required to make payment to this micro or small enterprise by 28th March 2024. Now, how did I arrive at this due date 28th March 2024? We'll come to it in a couple of slides time. On 31st of March, this payment was still outstanding, and I made the payment to my supplier on 1st April 2024. Now, what is going to be the impact of this? Pushparaj sir.
Sir, I think we need to disallow.
So I was
we have to disallow in the financial year 23-24, and we have to allow in the financial year 24-25 because the payment has been made on in the year financial year 24-25. Right, sir?
Perfect.
My understanding.
Perfect, sir. Perfect. Thank you, sir. So I was required to make payment before 28th of March, but I made the payment on 1st of April, the next financial year. So in the financial year 23-24, this expenditure, irrespective of the quantum, it could be 1 rupee, 100 rupee, or it could be 100 crore rupee. The entire expenditure will be disallowed. It shall be added to my income for the purpose of my tax computation. But because I have made a payment subsequently in the next financial year, that is financial year 24-25, in financial year 24-25, I will get a deduction of the same amount which has been disallowed in my hands in financial year 23-24. Right, sir? Case 2, sir.
This is a timing difference.
Yeah, this is not a permanent disallowance. I don't lose out on the benefit forever. I lose out on the benefit in the year in which I do not make payment, and in the subsequent year of payment, I will regain my benefit. So as sir is rightly put out, it is not a permanent disallowance. It's just a temporary disallowance or a timing difference. But the timing difference will come with implication. So in year 1, let's say the amount under consideration was 1 crore. If 1 crore gets added to my income, I will end up paying 30 lakhs in year 1 in taxes. I may get a benefit in year 2. But then in year 2, I should have income to the tune of 1 crore to absorb the tax of 30 lakh that I already paid in the preceding year. The implications could be very high. We'll get into more details in a gradually phased manner. But before that, let's look at case 2. 20th Feb 2024 was my date of purchase. 6th April 24 was my due date. I have made payment on 1st April 2024. So standing 31st March 2024, my liability to my micro manufacturer is still outstanding. What would be the implications, sir?
So my understanding, we should allow it, sir.
As on 31st March 2023. As on 31st March 2024, I still have an outstanding to my micro manufacturer, but then 31st March, my due date to make payment to the manufacturer is not yet expired. I have time up till 6th of April to make payment to my manufacturer, and I made my payment well within 6th April. I made a payment on 1st April. Although, look at it, it's a payment made in the subsequent financial year, but it is still a payment made within the due date. And therefore, I will not have to suffer any disallowance in financial year 23-24. Case 3, we'll look at the cases and we'll try to sum it up in a more simpler and much understandable manner. But let's finish the cases first. Case 3, 2nd August 23, I made a purchase. The due date was 28th August 2023. I made payment after due date on 31st March 2024. What would be the implications?
We will allow it, sir, because this has been paid during the financial year itself.
So technically what is happening here is, because I have missed the due date of 28th August 2023, this has to be disallowed in financial year 23-24, and now it has to be allowed in the year in which I am making payment. Coincidentally, I am making payment in the same financial year 23-24. So in the same year, I'll have a disallowance as well as an allowance. In net impact, I'll have a zero implication in my tax computation. So payment made before 31st March 2024, I will have, okay, to sum it up in simple words, I may have delays in making payments to my micro manufacturer or small enterprise, but as long as I set right my payments before 31st of March 2024, I don't have to worry about any tax implication for that financial year. That is conclusion number 1. That's the summary point number 1 that we draw from this. Summary point number 2, as on 31st March 2024, I can have only those outstandings, I can have only those payables, the due date for which is not yet fallen due. We look at our case 2, 31st March 2024, the amount is still outstanding, but I don't suffer a disallowance because the due date for making payment is 6th April. Case 3, my due date was 28th August 2023. I missed the due date, but still I don't have to worry about if on or before 31st March 2024, I can set this right and I can make payment to my micro and small manufacturer. Right? Case number 4. The date of purchase is 2nd Feb 2023. The due date for payment was 28th March 2023. Please note the financial year. Here we are referring to a transaction that has happened in financial year 22-23 and not financial year 23-24. And this purchase remains outstanding till date. What should be the implications, sir? Pushpraj, sir.
Sir, this provision 43BH, this has been incorporated in the Finance Act 2023 and it is applicable from 1/4/2023. So whatever outstanding as on 31st March 2023, we need not worry.
Perfectly, sir.
Because it is already allowed in our income tax assessment for finance assessment year 23-24.
Perfect, sir. So, as sir rightly put it out, 43B is a provision inserted by Finance Act 23 with effect from financial year 23-24. Now, this purchase that I made in Feb 23 was for financial year 22-23. Now, this provision will have prospective effect and not retrospective effect. I may not have made payment to my micro manufacturer with regards to this transaction even on 31st March 2024, but there cannot be any disallowance for the income computation of 23-24 for the simple fact that disallowance should be preceded by a claim for allowance. इस खर्चे का मैंने क्लेम इस ईयर में किया ही नहीं है, इस खर्चे का क्लेम मैंने प्रीसीडिंग ईयर में किया है एंड उस ईयर में 43B लागू ही नहीं होता था. जिस ईयर में 43B लागू हो रहा है उस ईयर में मेरा क्लेम ही नहीं है. When there is no claim for allowance, there is no question of disallowance, right? So for earlier years payment which are still outstanding, don't worry too much about it. From an income tax perspective, your vendor is chasing you. Of course, you have a worry from your vendor's point of view. But then from a strictly income tax perspective, you don't have to worry about dues prior to 1st April 2023 to those delays which you can make it good by 31st of March 2024. Please make your best efforts to make good those delays. Please try to make payment to your vendors before 31st March 2024 to avoid any possible 43B implications. Now, coming to the question that Pushpraj sir was speaking of, who is a micro manufacturer, micro enterprise, and a small enterprise? So, a micro and small enterprise and a medium enterprise, the categorization is done based on a composite criteria of turnover and investment in plant and machinery. So, micro enterprise is that entity, that enterprise whose turnover does not exceed 5 crore and investment in plant and machinery does not exceed 1 crore. If the turnover exceeds 5 crore but does not exceed 50 crores and the investment in plant and machinery does not exceed 10 crore, then that entity will be categorized as a small enterprise. If the turnover exceeds 50 crores but does not exceed 250 crores and investment in plant and machinery does not exceed 50 crores, then that entity will be categorized as a medium enterprise. Now it's common to take MSME in the same breath, but then please bear in mind 43B disallowance applies only to transactions that you undertake with your micro enterprises and small enterprises. A medium entity supplier will not cause any 43B disallowance in your hands. So what I have to look at is turnover limit of 50 crores and 10 crores for 43B applicability in my hand. Are we good up till this point? If there are any queries, you can please put them on the chat box. We will have a separate Q&A session towards the end, but if Pushparaj sir feels there is any relevant query which can be taken up in the course of our slides, sir will of course pass on the query to us.
Just to inform the audience, this is a cumulative condition or anyone 50 crores and 10 crores?
This is a cumulative condition, sir. My turnover should not cross 5 crores and my investment in plant and machinery should not cross 1 crore. So let's say my turnover is only 4 crores, but investment in plant and machinery is 2 crores. Then I'm not a micro enterprise, I'm a small enterprise. Or let's look at it from a medium enterprise point of view. I have a turnover of 25 crores, but my investment in plant and machinery is 11 crores. Then I'm not a small enterprise, I'm a medium enterprise. I have to satisfy both the conditions, the turnover condition as well as investment condition to fit into micro and small category.
Okay, sir. Noted.
With regards to turnover, now the way the system presently works is that turnover is automatically pulled. So if you are trying to make an application for registration on the MSME portal, the turnover will be automatically pulled from your IT returns. And turnover कौन से साल का देखना है? So let's say I want to register myself as a MSME, as a micro or a small entity in the current year. I'm making an application now in the month of February 2024. तो कौन से साल का turnover देखना है? 23-24 का turnover नहीं देखना है क्योंकि वो साल तो अभी तक complete ही नहीं हुआ है. So the turnover of the preceding year has to be looked into, and the system will automatically pull this from your IT returns and from your GST returns. Further, point number 2, turnover for the purpose of this MSME classification, जो 1 crore, 10 crore और 50 crore का हमने जो लिमिट देखा, for that purpose export turnover will be excluded. Export turnover shall be excluded. So it could so be possible that I am an export unit. I have 1000 crores of export turnover, but only 5 crores or 2 crores of domestic turnover. I am still a micro and small entity for the purpose of MSMED. Right? So export turnover has to be excluded. Turnover of the preceding year has to be taken into account, and there is nothing that you have to key in. System will automatically pull this data from your IT return, and export turnover will automatically be pulled up from your GST returns. Likewise, for the purpose of investment computation, so prior to 2020, the way we used to compute investment was to look at the gross numbers. But 2020, 26 जून को एक notification आया, वहाँ पर एक COVID period में एक relaxation आया to say, ठीक है, हम gross value of investment नहीं देखेंगे. मैंने 4 साल पहले 5 करोड़ की मशीनरी खरीदी थी, उसका डिप्रिशिएट हो के आज रिटर्न डाउन वैल्यू खाली 50 लाख है. तो 50 lakh is what will be counted for the purpose of my MSME classification and not the gross block of investment that I initially made. And this again will be pulled from my IT return. इसमें थोड़े exclusions भी दिए गए हैं. So they have gone on to say that the investment that you make in pollution control equipment, investment that you make in research and development equipment, industrial safety devices, इन सब प्लांट एंड मशीनरी में आप जो भी इन्वेस्टमेंट करेंगे, उसका जो रिटर्न डाउन वैल्यू है, हम उसको आपके एमएसएमई कैटेगराइजेशन के लिए उसको काउंट नहीं करेंगे, उसको हम कंसीडर नहीं करेंगे. देयर आर सर्टेन अदर एक्सक्लूजन्स आल्सो. कंज्यूमेबल्स आर एक्सक्लूडेड, टूल्स, jigs, dies, molds, spare parts are also excluded. Cables, wiring, safety measures, equipments, the transportation charges that you pay to bring the plant to your factory, and the installation or erection charges that you pay to install your machinery will also be excluded. So if I have to sum up our discussion till now, I have to first identify whether my vendor is a micro or a small enterprise. If he's a medium enterprise, I don't have to worry about. How will I identify? I'll come to it in a little while. But who's a micro or small enterprise? Turnover of less than or equal to 50 crores. Investment in plant and machinery less than or equal to 10 crores. So if I made any supplies, if I made any purchases from micro or small enterprise in financial year 23-24, I have to ensure that I make payment to him within the due date or at least before 31st March. I can have an outstanding to my micro or small enterprise supplier as on 31st March only and only if the due date to make payment to him is falling due after 31st of March. Right? Now, having understood having got a bird's eye macro view of what the disallowance provision talks of, now let's look at a due date to make payment to a micro and small enterprise. So the due date, the time within which I have to make payment to my micro and small enterprise is given to us under Section 15 of MSMED Act. I know I'm not going to worry you too much about the section numbers and all of it. But then because this is the core of our today's discussion, this is the most critical part. This is again what you're seeing in front of the screen is a Bare Act reproduction of the section. I've just broken it down into paragraphs and bullets for a user-friendly read. And this, since this is the core of our entire program discussion, if I may request Pushparaj sir to give it a plain reading, and then we'll try to summarize it in simple English. Sir, you're there?
Sir, I am there. Should I read that?
Yes, please, sir.
So liability of buyer to make payment. Where any supplier supplies any goods or renders any services to any buyer. 1 minute, sir.
Sir, I think you're from your mobile, and it's
Yes, sir.
hard to read from there. I'll do this for you, sir. And I promise that this is going to be the only section that we're going to read. Otherwise, we'll keep our talk much simpler. But this is the core of it, sir. You should know this in and out. ये आपको मुंह ज़बानी याद रहना चाहिए for you to be able to be advising your clients and for you to be able to take business decisions in your day-to-day business operation, right? So where any supplier supplies any goods or renders any services to any buyer, the buyer shall make payment therefore on or before the date agreed upon between him and the supplier in writing, or where there is no agreement in this behalf before the appointed day. What is appointed day is next screen. I understand it's getting a little technical. I'll simplify it. Provided that in no case the period agreed upon between the supplier and the buyer in writing shall exceed 45 days from the day of acceptance or the day of deemed acceptance. Now, what is appointed day? Ye bhi fatafat pad lete hain, and then we try to summarize this in simple English. Appointed day means the day following immediately after the expiry of the period of 15 days from the day of acceptance or the day of deemed acceptance of any goods or any services from a buyer, by a buyer from a supplier. So in simple words, I'll try to simplify this, sir. What this section 15 is trying to tell us is, भैया अगर आपने किसी माइक्रो और स्मॉल सप्लायर से परचेज किया है, then you will make payment to him within the credit period that has been agreed between you. And this agreement of credit period has to be in writing. तो आपके और आपके वेंडर के बीच में अगर कोई रिटर्न क्रेडिट पीरियड ऑलरेडी अग्रीड है, then आप उस क्रेडिट पीरियड के अंदर आपको पेमेंट करना है. That is your due date. 1st of March, I have made a purchase from my micro supplier with a written understanding that I will make payment to him within 15 days or within 20 days. 20th March को मेरे को उसको पेमेंट करना है. So that is my due date of making payment to him. However, the credit period that me and my vendor negotiate, the act says cannot exceed 45 days. तो आपस में आप मैक्सिमम 45 डेज का क्रेडिट का अग्रीमेंट कर सकते हैं. अगर आपने 60 डेज, 90 डेज, 120 डेज का क्रेडिट पीरियड अग्रीड किया है, irrespective, notwithstanding the contractual obligation between the two, statutory obligation on the buyer ये है कि आपको पेमेंट 45 डेज के अंदर ही करना है. तो 1st March मैंने परचेज किया with the understanding that I will make payment in 60 days. 30 अप्रैल के पहले मैं पेमेंट कर दूंगा और 30 अप्रैल को मैंने पेमेंट भी कर दिया as per the contractual terms. सॉरी, आपको 43B डिसअलोवेंस लगेगा क्योंकि एक्ट बोलता है आपका क्रेडिट बिटवीन द बायर एंड द वेंडर cannot exceed 45 days. Clear? But this is a situation where a credit period has been agreed between the parties and that too in writing. अगर oral agreement है तो sorry आपको 45 days का credit period का relaxation भी नहीं मिलेगा. If there is no agreement or there is an agreement but it is not in writing, then the act says हम आपको default credit period 15 दिन का देते हैं. तो within 15 days you have to make a payment. So let's say मैंने 25 मार्च को परचेज किया है, 15 दिन वहां से मानिए 10 अप्रैल को एक्सपायर हो रहा है, तो बिफोर 10th April I have to make payment. The payment on 11th April will attract a 43B disallowance in my case. To make this much more simpler, I have a few simple illustrations. Let's walk through the illustrations and hopefully things will get much better and easier over there.
Sir, but we don't have an agreement, but we have written in our PO. That is sufficient, right? The terms of trade.
Okay. अग्रीमेंट का मतलब क्या होता है? अग्रीमेंट का मतलब ये नहीं होता है कि मैं और आप एक सेपरेट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बना के उसको स्टैंप करके उसको एग्जीक्यूट करें, नहीं, वो जरूरी नहीं है। अग्रीमेंट कैन ऑल्सो बी इन द फॉर्म ऑफ पीओ। तो मैंने पीओ भेजा है, भैया ये रेट पर, ये प्राइसेस, ये प्राइस पर इतना क्वांटिटी मेरे को सप्लाई करो, एंड माय पीओ आल्सो प्रिस्क्राइब्स द टर्म ऑफ पेमेंट, द टर्म्स ऑफ पेमेंट बिटवीन अस। तो उस पीओ को उसने एक्सेप्ट किया है तभी उसने सप्लाई किया है, सो देयर इज एन अग्रीमेंट। सो माय टर्म्स आर इन राइटिंग, and the action of he supplying goods to me at the agreed rates, agreed terms, makes it an agreement between us. So there's no requirement of a separate contractual contract to be executed for the terms of the credit to be agreed between us. It can be on the face of the invoice also. So मैंने आपको invoice दिया, on the face of my invoice I make a statement that my invoice is payable within 10 days. You put your signature to it, you accept my service, that itself is an agreement which is in writing. I hope this clarifies the question, sir.
Definitely. Yes. Got it.
We'll have a couple of illustrations. It should make things more clearer, hopefully. So illustration number 1, Slow Payer Limited, आराम से payment करता है. Bought goods from Micro Manufacturer Limited on 30th March 2024. The two orally agreed upon a credit period of 30 days for payment. Now, what is the maximum date by when Slow Payer Limited has to make payment in terms of Section 15 of MSMED Act? Again, Pushparaj sir, I'll take your help here. So, to summarize the question, there is a purchase by one entity from a micro entity. The terms of purchase is 30 days credit. The date of purchase is 30th March. Now, what is the due date of payment? What is the date within which I have to make payment or suffer 43B disallowance? Participants can also type in their answers in the chat box so that we'll have an involvement of the participants as well.
What is the
Okay.
It is 15 days.
तो हमको 43BH में दो ड्यू डेट्स दिया गया है, सेक्शन 15 में दो ड्यू डेट्स दिया गया है. संजय मालू सर says 15 days, 14 days. Correct sir, a lot of you have got the answer right, but then let me explain the reasoning behind it. So हमको सेक्शन 15 में दो ड्यू डेट दिए गए सर, एक्चुअल क्रेडिट पीरियड ऑफ 45 days whichever is lower, or 15 days default credit period. Now the agreed credit period is available only if it is in writing. यहाँ पर क्वेश्चन बोलता है कि हमने राइटिंग में कुछ भी अग्री नहीं किया, इट इज ओरली बिटवीन द बायर एंड द सेलर, तो हमको 45 डेज वाला अग्री क्रेडिट पीरियड वाला ड्यू डेट नहीं मिलेगा. वी हैव टू गेट इनटू द डिफॉल्ट क्रेडिट पीरियड ऑफ 15 डेज. तो 15 days from 30th March. Now again the question here is 15 days from 30th March would be 13th April या 14th April सर? तो मैं 30 मार्च को काउंट करके छोड़ू चलूं या 30 मार्च को छोड़ के 15 दिन काउंट करूं? If I am counting 30th March also one day, then my due date is 13th April. If I have to leave 30th March and count 15 days, then my due date is 14th April. क्या करेंगे सर? Leave 30th April. I'm sorry, I'm not able to read the names. It's flowing too early. But yeah, a lot of you have got it right. तो इसका आंसर सर हमको जनरल क्लॉजेस एक्ट में मिलता है. तो जनरल क्लॉजेस एक्ट क्या बोलता है? व्हेनेवर यू हैव बीन गिवन अ सीरीज ऑफ डेज एंड यू आर रिक्वायर्ड टू कंप्यूट द एंड डेट एंड द वर्ड फ्रॉम हैज बीन यूज्ड, देन यू विल इग्नोर द स्टार्ट डेट. तो आपको 30 मार्च को छोड़ के चलना है सर. ये मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, ये जनरल क्लॉजेस एक्ट बोलता है 30 मार्च को आपको छोड़ के 15 दिन गिनना है. तो आपको 14th अप्रैल का ड्यू डेट है, तो यू हैव टू मेक पेमेंट ऑन और बिफोर 14th अप्रैल 2024. अगर मैं 15 अप्रैल को पेमेंट करूंगा तो क्या होगा सर? मान लीजिए अगर मैंने पेमेंट 15 अप्रैल को की, 14th अप्रैल को मैं नहीं कर पाया एंड आई हैव मेड अ पेमेंट ऑन 15th अप्रैल, तब क्या होगा?
It will get disallowed in financial year 23-24.
That is the most ideal answer. It should get disallowed in financial year 23-24 and I should get an allowance in financial year 24-25. But fortunately, unfortunately, disallowance नहीं होगा. Reason being, आप कैलेंडर खोल के देखिए 14th अप्रैल आके संडे है.
Sunday, okay.
And section 10 of General Clauses Act मेरे को बोलता है कि whenever an act is required to be done on a particular day and if that day happens to be a holiday, it is sufficient compliance of the regulation if the act is done on the immediately subsequent day. 14th April being Sunday and 15th April, that is Monday, being the immediately next working day. If I make a payment on 15th April, it has to be considered as though compliance done on 14th April, and therefore 15 तारीख को भी अगर मैं payment करता हूं तो disallowance would not get attracted. Right?
Sir, one more query, sir.
Yes,
We have made a NEFT on 15th April, as you suggested here, but the account of the supplier is created on 16th April.
I'll come to that, sir. I have a specific slide on that. I
Okay.
have made payments through checks. I have made payments through banking channels. I have a separate slide on that. I'll come to that.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay, let's take one more example on the computation of due date before we move on to the next topic. Again, Slow Bear Limited bought goods from micro manufacturers on 1st March 2024. The two agreed in writing upon a credit period of 30 days from the date of delivery, including the date of delivery. Now, what is the maximum date by when Slow Bear Limited has to make payment in terms of Section 15 of MSMED Act? So this is very similar to our previous question. इसमें दो changes है. यहाँ पर credit period has been agreed to in writing. The 30 दिन का credit period has been agreed. And my terms also very specifically indicate that for the purpose of computing that 30-day period, I will include the date of delivery also. So इस case में, what would be my due date? So due date here would be 30th March and not 31st March. हमने previous example में the day of delivery exclude किया because Section 9 of General Clauses Act told me to do so. But इस case में क्या हो रहा है? There is a specific agreement between the parties to include the due date. General Clauses Act कोई mandatory act नहीं है. It is a common sense, वो एक compilation of common sense regulations है. But if the parties to the contract agree to have an interpretation different from the General Clauses Act, then the parties' understanding has to be appreciated, be respected, and because they have specifically agreed कि date of delivery भी include होगा. अगर कुछ भी नहीं बोलता contract had it been silent, then like in the previous case, I would have excluded the date of delivery. But if my contract specifically tells me include the date of delivery, यहाँ पर मैं Section 9 को invoke नहीं कर सकता हूँ, and here my due date is going to be 30th March and not 31st March. Just an attempt to distinguish between, ऐसा नहीं हो कि आप हर जगह General Clauses Act invoke करते रहो. General Clauses Act का applicability के भी कुछ restrictions हैं, कुछ कायदे उसके बंदिशें हैं, right? Okay. Payment through checks. I think this should answer your previous query, sir. Mr. Wayward buys services from Messrs. Small Services Limited. Appointed date for payment is 18th April 2024. तो मेरा due date 18th April था. मेरे को 18th April 2024 के पहले payment करना था. Wayward hands over a check dated 14th April 24 on 16th April 24, which Small Services Limited deposits on 10th May 24. Is 43BH disallowance triggered over here? I simplify the question. मेरे को 18 अप्रैल के पहले पेमेंट करनी थी. मैंने 14 तारीख को एक चेक लिखा, 16 तारीख को मैंने अपने वेंडर को दिया, उसने 10 मई को जाके डिपॉजिट किया और मान लीजिए 12 मई को जाके वो बैंक में क्लियर हुआ. तो 43BH disallowance ट्रिगर होगा या नहीं? Or to further simplify the question, in this series of events that I've had with my vendor, what is the date of payment? Payment कब हुआ? The day I wrote the check, so we have multiple options. Let's see. The day I wrote the check, is that the date of payment? The day I handed over the check, is that the date of payment? The day on which the vendor deposited the check with the bank, is that the date of payment? Or the day on which the check actually encashed, debited from my bank and got credited to the vendor's account? तो इन चारों डेट में कौन सा डेट ऑफ पेमेंट होगा? कौन बनेगा करोड़पति? ABCD चार ऑप्शन है सर आपके पास. Let me see people make attempts. Since check was handed on 16th April, it should be considered as payment. Naveen Kumar Jain says yes. 16th April. Okay. Pushparaj sir, आप क्या बोलना चाहेंगे सर? थोड़ा elaboration के साथ. 16th April. So a lot of them are of the viewpoint कि date of payment is 16th April. 5 मार्क का क्वेश्चन है, खाली डेट देने से 1 मार्क मिलेगा, थोड़ा रीजनिंग भी देना पड़ेगा।
Sir, he should have the balance on that day in the bank. Just giving check will not suffice. On that day, the balance has to be there in the bank. Just giving check will not serve.
Just giving check will not suffice. There should be sufficient bank balance also on the account. If there is
Yes.
sufficient bank balance on that day and I've given the check, then it is.
Yeah, because it is
It
a
is
mistake
well
of the
within 45
supplier.
days.
It is a mistake of the supplier. He has just kept, he has forgotten, maybe he has forgotten and he has not deposited the check. But when balance is there and I have issued my check, it is as good as payment is done. He has not deposited. What can I do for that?
What can I do? Perfect, sir. In a way, I would agree to you. Courts have agreed to you. But then a more technical and legal answer to this would be, check is a negotiable instrument. And section 6 of negotiable instrument हमको ये बोलता है, check की definition देता है, and it reads, check is a bill of exchange drawn on a bank which is payable on demand, right? तो इसका मतलब क्या हो गया? It is a negotiable instrument which can be transferred by mere delivery. अगर open check है, मेरे पास किसी का चेक है, मैंने आपको दे दिया, उस डिलीवरी से ट्रांसफर कंप्लीट होता है। या अगर क्रॉस चेक है, देन आई हैव टू डिलीवर एंड आल्सो मेक एन एंडोर्समेंट। इन सब का कंबाइंड अंडरस्टैंडिंग ये हो गया कि द डेट ऑफ पेमेंट शैल बी द डे ऑन विच आई हैंड ओवर द चेक टू यू। एंड ये एनालिसिस, ये कंक्लूजन मेरा नहीं है, ये कंक्लूजन सुप्रीम कोर्ट का इन द केस ऑफ जीवनलाल आचार्य's केस। Check is considered to be a form of payment when it is delivered, regardless of when it is actually presented for payment. The actual date of payment for a check is the date on which the check is handed over. The date on which check is encashed is simply the date on which the funds are transferred from the payer's account to the payer's account. So just दिन encash हो रहा है, just दिन बैंक में debit credit हो रहा है, just a date of encashment. The date of payment, because it is a negotiable instrument, is the day on which the check is handed over, the day on which the check is delivered. However, a word of caution over here. If on 16th April, I am handing over a check which is dated 20th April, there Supreme Court says, if you are handing over a post-dated check, then the date of payment shall be the date on which the check is encashable. That is 20th of April. So if it is a post-dated check, the date of payment will be the date of check on the check, even if it is delivered before that date. ये तो भैया civil matter हो गया. Will this argument be bought and accepted in an income tax proceeding? Income tax में in the context of 43B, we've had a 2002 judgment before Punjab and Haryana High Court, Hindustan Wire Products के case में. So I'll not get too technical into the case details, but to give you a broad outline of what happened there is. तो 90s में एक कानून हुआ करता था 43B में, which required payment of gratuity within 15th of April. तो हिंदुस्तान वायर्स ने 31 मार्च को एक चेक दिया LIC को. LIC ने 31 मार्च का उसको receipt भी दिया, but for some reason the check cleared the assessee's bank account on 22nd April. Now when this came up for scrutiny, assessing officer ने बोला भैया देखो, Act required you to make payment before 15th April, but see your bank statement. Your bank statement, this amount is debited on 22nd April, and because it is debited on 22nd April, the payment has been made by you on 22nd, which is after 15th. I will disallow this expenditure. Matter went up to High Court, wherein High Court came to the assessee's rescue to say, see, check has been handed over on 31st March. There is an acknowledgement by LIC also that yes, the check was received by LIC on 31st March. Now, how it got delayed, why it got delayed is something which only LIC is aware of. For a default, for an act of the third party, the assessee cannot be made to suffer, and therefore there cannot be a disallowance in the hands of the assessee Hindustan Wire Products Limited. पुष्पराज सर का मेरे को प्राइवेट में मैसेज आ रहा है, 5 मार्क के क्वेश्चन के लिए 15 मार्क का आंसर क्यों लिखा? But for me, it is always the reasoning which is more important than the conclusion. Conclusion हाँ ना WhatsApp में भी बहुत घूम रहा है, कोई बोल रहा है date of payment, कोई बोल रहा है date of clearance. The answer is convincing. My opinion or my advice to my clients is going to be convincing and confident to my client only if it is given with some reasoning. And if I know the reasoning, I also know the variations in different cases and its applicability. So therefore, we will, wherever possible, try to spend a little bit of time on not just the conclusion, but also try to reason out and satisfy and convince ourselves that yes, यही correct answer है.
Good evidence, sir. Very good insight. Thank you, sir.
मेरे को एक और प्राइवेट मैसेज आ रहा है. तो बेसिकली अगर मैं अपने वेंडर के साथ थोड़ा जुगाड़ कर लूं तो जो 45 डेज का लिमिट है मैं उसको 120 डेज से एक्सटेंड कर सकता हूँ। पुष्पराज सर समझ रहे हैं? 15 अप्रैल को मेरे को पेमेंट करना था, मिस हो गया या मेरे पास अरेंजमेंट नहीं हुआ वॉट एवर रीजन, I make a payment to my vendor on 15th May. I make a payment by way of a check. I date my check 15th April and मेरे vendor से मैं एक acknowledgement भी ले लेता हूँ.
Yes.
Do I sell home? तो am I safe? क्या मैं ऐसा कर सकता हूँ? ऐसा करिए करके मैं एडवाइस नहीं कर रहा हूँ, ऐसा यहाँ पे सजेशन आया है. Is that a feasible option? पुष्पराज सर.
Sir, this is outside books of accounts. If you want to do that and if it is available, you can go ahead. It is beyond law.
It is on a strict literal interpretation of law. You don't get hit by the 43B disallowance. But then हमारे सर हमेशा बोलते थे रबर बैंड को उतना ही खींचना चाहिए जितना खींच सके, ज्यादा खींचेंगे तो ब्रेक हो जाएगा. You do it for 1 or 2 transactions, maybe you will get away and you will also have this legal defense available to you. But if you do it for all your transactions, all your vendors, 31st March vendors are paid by check and you've taken that extended 30-day or 120 days window by way of this check payment, then assessing officer is going to doubt the bona fides of your transaction. Now, if your bona fides of the transactions get doubted, then possibly this defense would also not be available to you. As an assessing officer, if I come across a case where there are too many check payments for year-end dues, what I would do is I would go into further analysis and see, भैया पहले क्या हो रहा है? See, all the payments till 31st of March promptly RTGS, NEFT, online bank transfer से हुआ है. ये खाली 31st March वाले payments में इतना BRS क्यों दिख रहा है मेरे को? So if I get into that investigation mode and if I can further demonstrate from your bank statement कि भैया 15th April को आपने चेक तो दे दिया, but 15th April को आपके बैंक में बैलेंस ही नहीं था, so there was no way your vendor could have deposited and cleared that check on 15th April. Then the shelter which Hindustan Wire Products got, that act of third party cannot be a default by the third party I cannot be penalized. That shelter will not be available to you because it is not a case of default of third party. आपके बैंक में ही बैलेंस नहीं था इसलिए उसने deposit नहीं किया. It is a case of match fixing between you and your vendor, and you could get in some difficult tax net if you're trying to pull this a little too much, little too beyond the acceptable limits. Okay. Next. Start date for computing time period. So हमने यहाँ पर throughout एक slide में पीछे जाता हूँ. So we have always till now up till this point we have seen the limits of 15 days or 45 days or 30 days agreed between the parties within which the payment has to be made. So the question here is इसका start date क्या होगा? एक simple example देता हूँ. मैंने 1st April को मेरे एक टेक्सटाइल मैन्युफैक्चरर जो कि एक माइक्रो यूनिट है उसको मैंने ऑर्डर प्लेस किया, मैंने एक परचेज ऑर्डर प्लेस किया, भैया मेरे को 100 जीन्स X रेट में सप्लाई करना. 1st March is when I place my purchase order. 3rd March को उसने dispatch किया. 5th March को मेरे को goods deliver हुआ. 7th March को मेरे हाथ में invoice आया. अभी हमारे बीच में 45 days का credit period agreed है. So the question here is 45 days will count from what date? 1st March, the day of PO. 3rd March, the day of dispatch. 5th March, the day of delivery, or 7th March, the day of invoice. I will pause for some suggestions and some attempts. 3rd March, Parish ji बोल रहे हैं 3rd March is the date of dispatch. So आप date of dispatch बोल रहे हैं. Okay. Date of delivery, Deepak Pokarna ji. Umesh ji, date of delivery. Right. So a lot of you got it right. So date of delivery of the goods or the service is my start point. That is what even law says. Law भी हमको section 2B में, again I'm not going to bore you with the where at text of the section. So law भी हमको यही बोलता है actual date of delivery of goods or actual date of rendering of the service is the day from which my meter will count. Is the day from which I will start counting that 30, 15 or 45 days का counter. But इसमें एक छोटा सा exception देता है law. लॉ क्या बोलता है, अगर आपको कोई ऑब्जेक्शन है, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ ऑब्जेक्शन? ऑब्जेक्शन कुड बी, भैया मैंने 100 पीस का ऑर्डर दिया था, तूने मेरे को 10 पीस भेजा है, या तूने मेरे को 1000 पीस भेजा है। मैंने तेरे को ब्लू जीन्स का ऑर्डर दिया था, तूने मेरे को ब्लैक जीन्स भेजा है। मैंने साइज 42 का ऑर्डर दिया था, तूने मेरे को साइज 40 भेजा है। मेरे तेरे बीच में रेट अग्री हुआ था 40 रुपए पीस, तूने मेरे को 60 रुपए पीस में बिल किया है। Any kind of an objection, there is no qualification as to what should be the category of objection. If there is any objection between me and my vendor, and that objection is again put into writing within 15 days from the date of delivery, then my start point will be deferred up to the point where the defect is removed, the objection is removed by my vendor. So for example, मैंने ऑर्डर किया था 100 पीस साइज 40, मेरे को सप्लाई आ गया 100 पीस साइज 42, and I have raised an objection with my vendor in writing, and that objection is raised within 15 days from the date of delivery. 5 मार्च से 15 दिन, 30 मार्च के पहले, 20 मार्च के पहले मैंने रिटर्न ऑब्जेक्शन लॉन्च कर दिया है मेरे वेंडर के पास। देन until my vendor comes down and resolves my objection, मेरा मीटर स्टार्ट ही नहीं होगा। मेरा मीटर स्टार्ट ही नहीं होगा का मैंने ये हो गया, आई एम नॉट लायबल टू मेक एनी पेमेंट टू माय वेंडर। मेरे को 43B डिसअलाउंस भी नहीं लगेगा। सर यहाँ पे मैच फिक्सिंग हो सकता है? भरपूर हो सकता है। Any trouble that you see from the department, sir, here? Mia Bibi Raji, क्या करेगा काजी? Vendor is giving a confirmation, yes, he has raised an objection. Buyer is saying, I have an objection. Both produce a written document showing a communication trail between them about the objection. I think there is nothing much even that the department can do about in this kind of a scenario. But yet again, you have to be cautious that you don't stretch it beyond the acceptable limit. You cannot have an objection with all your vendors, particularly with vendors which are outstanding or due or payable as on 31st of March. So due date for payment, let's try to summarize our discussion till now on the point of due date of payment. मैं कितना maximum खींच सकता हूँ? Law says make payment between the agreed credit period. If the credit period is agreed in writing, then you can have a maximum 45-day window to make payment. If there is no written agreement or if there is no credit period agreed between the parties, then the maximum time that you get is 15 days. तो चेक वाले जुगाड़ से मैं और 3 महीना खींच सकता हूँ। 3 महीना इसलिए क्योंकि चेक की वैलिडिटी 3 महीना होती है। Beyond 3 months, a check is invalid. So with the help of a backdated check and a backdated acknowledgement from my vendor having received the check on that previous day, I can stretch it by another 3 months. And by way of raising a paper objection between me and my vendor, I have unlimited time available for me for making. I'm not suggesting go ahead and do this. I'm just an academician, a tax enthusiast who tries to, or rather likes to interpret and see where all the gaps are there in the law. I'll pause here for a minute. अगर कुछ इसके related questions है तो भी ले लेंगे सर. Or if you want to decrease or increase my speed, there also please let me know.
So can you just elaborate on the traders if I have made a purchase from a trader?
I have a separate.
There is a different slide for that? Yeah.
There is a slide on that. अब issues बहुत है सर. अभी तो हमने खाली लॉ किया है. अभी हमने 50% भी कवर नहीं किया है. If I have to decrease or increase my speed, then also please do let me know, because I'm not sure of the composition of the audience.
Based on time availability, you can decide.
Sir, budget 24 में ज़्यादा कुछ है नहीं.
Yes, sir. I know.
And value addition भी इतना होगा नहीं. This is a hot topic which is going to impact everybody over here. I think time spent on this topic is much more worth than any time that we'll spend on budget 24. If you permit, I would spend maximum of my time or even all of my time if required, if that's the need of the audience, on this particular topic itself.
Last 5-10 minutes, we can take on some budget 2-3 provisions which are impacting there.
Definitely. This slide, we are taking a small detour from our 43B. There are some related provisions of MSMED Act which one should all be aware of. I will not get into each of these provisions in detail. ये 3 section को अभी एक single slide में summarize करके हम आगे बढ़ेंगे. There is one section 16 of MSMED Act जो कि बोलता है for the delay in making payment you have to make interest payment also to your supplier. हमने अभी due dates पढ़ा ना 15 दिन 45 दिन का. What happens if I don't make payment within 45 days? I suffer a 43B disallowance under the Income Tax Act. This is something which has come up now. But even before that, 15 साल से 20 साल से Section 16 of MSMED Act has always been there in the statute books to say if there is a delay in making payment, then for the period of delay starting from the date of supply, I am liable to make interest payment to my vendor. At what rate? What rate? It is 3 times the bank RBI rate. RBI का जो bank rate है, which is presently 6.75%. 6.75% का 3 times, that is 20.25%. I have to make payment to my vendor compounded monthly. So 20.25% monthly compounding, you can make the calculation. It's going to be a very sizable impact. That is the risk that you carry in case you're delaying your payments to micro and small suppliers. Again, this is not something new. This has been there for years, for decades, but never been enforced. Payment आपको तभी करना है जब आपका vendor आपसे मांगेगा, and unlikely vendor आपसे interest मांगेगा unless you've really soured your relation with your vendor and the vendor does not intend to continue any business with you in future. नहीं तो अगली बार वो आएगा आपसे interest नहीं मांगेगा, आपसे order ही मांगेगा. अगर interest मांग रहा है मतलब समझ लीजिए उसको आपको और order supply करने का इच्छा नहीं, right? And this is now become more important because इसका इतना public awareness नहीं था till date. Now with 43B coming in, with income tax coming into the picture, there's a lot more awareness about MSME laws today. And because of that awareness, possibly a vendor with whom your relations are now soured may come back to you and claim his interest under Section 16. So that is one area also that you have to be critically aware of, conscious of in your business dealings. And
Sir, how long he can pay? Sir, do you have any idea? Because the relationship has become victory assured now. He can ask for 5-year-old payments also.
So he cannot ask for 5-year-old payment. Delhi High Court का एक judgment है VRS Enterprises के case में, जहाँ पे कि Delhi High Court. So the argument there was कि 16 का interest मैं कभी भी मांग सकता हूँ, उसका कोई time limit नहीं होना चाहिए. But then Delhi High Court has fortunately come to a rescue to say नहीं ऐसा नहीं होता है. The law of limitation which is applicable for all dues will apply here also, and the interest payment has to be claimed within 3 years. So you cannot have an interest claim for beyond 3 years. The general limitation कानून जो generally for any dues लगता है वो इसको भी लगे.
So 3 साल उसके साथ relationship अच्छा रखना है.
3 साल उसके साथ relation अच्छा रखना. Right. Very rightly said. And the best part, ये जो आप interest pay करेंगे आपके vendor को, Section 23 of MSMED Act बोलता है आपको उसको income tax में खर्चा भी नहीं मिलेगा. So this expenditure will be disallowed in your income computation, and ये disallowance very strangely is something which is not coming from the Income Tax Act. ये MSMED Act से आ रहा है. One of the very rare cases, where income computation is driven not by income tax provision but by a allied law provision. Which this is one such instance. So Section 23 of MSMED Act बोलता है जो Section 16 में आपने 20% इंटरेस्ट आपके वेंडर को पे किया है, उसका आपको खर्चा हम नहीं देंगे. इसको हम बोलते हैं डबल वैल्यू. इंटरेस्ट भी पे करो, गवर्नमेंट को टैक्स भी पे करो. One more provision before we get back to our core discussion. Section 22. Section 22 क्या बोलता है? Whenever you're preparing audited financial statements, you have to disclose. There is a set of disclosures. You have to disclose on the face of your financials how much you owe micro manufacturer, micro and small enterprises. What is the principal due? What is the interest due? What is the interest overdue? What is the principal overdue? ये disclosure नहीं करने से 27 subsection 2 of MSMED Act में 10,000 रुपए per financial year का आपको penalty भी लग सकता है. So this is section. I just go back one slide. This is Section 16. We're not getting into bare act provisions now. 6.75%. It was last revised on Feb 8, 2023. आज तक भी यही चल रहा है. So as and when Reserve Bank would revise these rates, आपका interest भी revise होता रहेगा. Interest rate that you are liable to pay to your MSME vendor will also keep getting revised. This is something I'll skip for a while. थोड़ा ज़्यादा technical हो जाएगा. So section 23 we have discussed this. Section 23 tells you हम आपको income tax में इसका खर्चा नहीं देंगे. We will not give you allowance for this interest that you pay to your MSME vendors. Section 23. So these are the disclosure requirements. On the face of your financial statement, you have to say the principal amount, the interest amount, and all of these disclosures you have to give. If not, under 27 subsection 2, you are liable for a penalty of 10,000 rupees. Okay. With this, we have gone through a bulk of the law. 80% कानून हमने cover कर लिया है. एक आधा थोड़ा बहुत और बचा है. I'll take it up in a phased manner. So let's look at some illustrations to see if we've understood the law correctly and are we ready to apply it in our practice, in our businesses. Starting with some simple illustrations. Retailer Limited buys Asian Paints from Distributor Limited for a sum of rupees 5 lakh on 1st Jan 2024. The entire sum is outstanding as on 31st March 2024. Would any disallowance under 43BH attract in this case? Note, Distributor Limited is a registered micro enterprise. 5 लाख का फटका लगेगा या नहीं लगेगा?
नहीं लगेगा सर.
नहीं लगेगा सर. वो माइक्रो एंटरप्राइज है सर. हमने ड्यू डेट पे पेमेंट नहीं किया सर. तो भी नहीं लगेगा. नो, श्रेयांश जी बोल रहे हैं
लगेगा सर. माइक्रो
एंटरप्राइजेस. विनोद जी बोल रहे लगेगा. बट चैट बॉक्स में मेजॉरिटी ऑफ देम आर सेइंग नो. तो ये आई थिंक काफी व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप्स में भी घुमा है एंड वेरी राइटली सेड इन द ग्रुप्स. तो small and micro enterprise is that enterprise which falls into those turnover and investment criteria. Before being a micro enterprise or a small enterprise, that entity should be an enterprise. Right? Enterprise का एक definition दिया गया है 2 clause E of MSMED Act में. So enterprise means a industrial undertaking, a business concern, or any other establishment or whatever name called, which is engaged in manufacturing or production of goods or engaged in providing or rendering of any services. So only those entities which are manufacturers or service providers are enterprise, and therefore only with regards to those supplies I will suffer a 43B disallowance. But usko MSME registration kaise mila? If he is not an enterprise, he should not be a micro enterprise. No, because to be a micro enterprise, you should first be an enterprise. And the definition says a trader is not a micro enterprise. The definition is only covering a manufacturer and a service provider. So usko registration kaise mil gaya? Registration mil gaya thanks to a relaxation that we had in 2021 in the COVID era. COVID era mein banks were finding it difficult to disperse funds to the small and medium category traders, and therefore a request came from RBI to the MSME ministry to say, आप इनको भी registration दे दो, because once they are registered there, it is easier to track the turnover and investment. So if you are registered as a micro or small enterprise, for a bank, it is easier to accept that you are a small time trader, and therefore you can be the beneficiary of the priority sector lendings that came up in that COVID area. So therefore, to facilitate RBI lending, 2nd July 2021 को हमारा ये एक circular आया, wherein if you read the para 2, government has received various representations and it has decided to include retail and wholesale traders as MSMEs, and they are allowed to be registered on the Udyam registration portal. However, the benefits to retail and wholesale trade MSMEs are to be restricted to priority sector lending only. It is to be restricted to priority sector lending only. इनको section 15, 16, 17 of MSMED Act का benefit नहीं मिलता है. The only benefit that a retailer or wholesaler gets by registering himself under the MSMED Act is priority sector lending, which flows not from the MSME Act. It flows from the RBI regulations. It flows from the RBI directives. अगर आप किसी ट्रेडर, होलसेलर या रिटेलर का MSME रजिस्ट्रेशन सर्टिफिकेट देखेंगे ना, वहां पे भी लाल लिंक में दिया गया है. मैन्युफैक्चरर और सर्विस प्रोवाइडर के लिए लाल लिंक यूज नहीं की गई है, खाली ट्रेडर के लिए लाल लिंक यूज की गई है ऑन द रजिस्ट्रेशन सर्टिफिकेट. देयर अगेन इट इज वेरी boldly highlighted to say, boss, you are a MSME registered under trading category and you will avail only priority sector lending benefits only, PSL benefits only. You are not eligible for payment within due dates under section 15. You are not eligible for interest under section 16. You are not eligible for the facilitation, conciliation, arbitration proceedings which MSME is otherwise eligible for under Chapter 5 of MSMED Act. You are not going to trigger any 43B disturbance in the hands of your
ये वो करने का पेमेंट अलग से वो छोड़ पुराना नहीं करना. But I want those 3 parties details. Justification. Request.
Any doubts that I could hear some?
A penalty you can set up, but others you can't set up, boss. That you have to remove the party details thing.
JSG, can you mute the other participants, please? Yeah.
Okay. ये part clear था पुष्पराज sir? Or
Yes sir, yes sir.
This is very critical sir. This is very critical. So you have to see आपका जो vendors हैं, उस vendors में number 1 MSME registered कौन है? उनको पहले पेमेंट करिए. नॉन MSMEs को भूल जाइए, उनको बाद में देख लेंगे हम. उस MSME registered vendors में आपको ये further identify करना है कि manufacturer और service provider कौन है. कोई trading में registered करना है. Sorry?
Traders को exclude करना है.
Traders को हमको टाइम पे पेमेंट नहीं करना है.
बस एक्सक्लूड करना है एक 43B डिसअलाउंस चेक करने के लिए. पेमेंट तो करना पड़ेगा.
सर my talk is purely from an income tax point of view. आपका बिजनेस कैसे मैनेज करना है, businesses know better than we tax professionals. Strictly from a tax point of view, vendors का लिस्ट निकालो. वो जो MSMEs नहीं है उनको लिस्ट से बाहर निकालो. उन MSMEs में जो ट्रेडर्स हैं उनको भी लिस्ट से बाहर निकालो. जो सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स एंड मैन्युफैक्चरर्स बचते हैं उनको पहले पेमेंट करो, बाकियों का पेमेंट बाद में दे. Again, this is strictly from point of view of income tax application. Business में you have lot of other commercial considerations also to be taken into account. मैं बड़े वेंडर को नहीं करूंगा तो मेरे को सप्लाई नहीं मिलेगा, मेरे को कैश डिस्काउंट नहीं मिलेगा. All that math. So what is better? Do I take a tax hit or do I take a discount hit? All that math is something that businesses are very well equipped to do. वो हमसे अच्छा जानते हैं, हमसे अच्छा जानकार है, वो उसे कर लेंगे. Can I proceed, sir?
Yes sir, yes sir.
This is critical, sir. Diligent procures security services worth 5 lakh from Small Safety Limited. Services were procured in December 23, but the balance is still outstanding as on 31st March 2024. Small Safety Limited meets the turnover and investment thresholds and is qualified to be classified as micro enterprises. However, Small Limited has not taken any registration under MSMED Act. Would disallowance under 43BH apply in this case? So I have to summarize this question. Question में क्या हो रहा है? I have made a supply, I have made a purchase of some service from a service provider. Now, when you apply the turnover and investment criteria, he fits into the classification of a micro enterprise and a small enterprise, but he has not taken MSME registration. By definition, he is a micro enterprise. He is a small enterprise, but he does not have a micro enterprise or a small enterprise registration. मेरे को 43B disallowance लगेगा या नहीं लगेगा?
So some answers are there in the chat box, sir.
Yes, no सब आ रहे हैं. No ज्यादा आ रहा है.
Because he is not registered.
Registration is dealt with under Section 8(1) of MSMED Act. जो कि बोलता है, any person who intends to establish a micro or a small enterprise may at his discretion file the memorandum of registration. So registration is a optional exercise as per MSMED Act. There are High Court judgments, Allahabad High Court, Delhi High Court, Hyderabad Court, which have said it is not mandatory for an enterprise to file memorandum under Section 8. Section 8 of the Act gives a discretion to the micro or small enterprise to file the memorandum. Such registration is not mandatory. So courts have gone on to held, even if the entity is not registered under MSMED Act, he is eligible for the benefits under MSMED Act. तो अभी आंसर चेंज होगा सर? Yes, Ashok ji changed his answer. Jitendra ji is saying yes. Now this was a position of law up till 2020. अभी इमेजिन करिए अगर इस पोजीशन ऑफ लॉ में अगर हमको ऑडिट करना होता, पुष्पराज सर हमारा ऑडिट प्रोग्राम कैसे होता सर? वेंडर्स का लिस्ट निकालो, वेंडर्स मतलब ऑडिट जिसका क्लाइंट का वेंडर्स लिस्ट निकालो, उन वेंडर्स को लेटर लिखो, भैया तेरा प्रीसीडिंग ईयर में टर्नओवर कितना था, तेरा आईटी ब्लॉक का WDV क्या है, तेरा ITR कॉपी दे, तेरा PNL कॉपी दे, तेरा GST रिटर्न्स दे, आइडेंटिफाइंग वेदर इज अ माइक्रो एंटरप्राइज और नो, एंड देन डिसाइडिंग 43B डिस्क्लोज करना है या नहीं करना। ऑडिट ही
So
छोड़
he
देते
is eligible for the benefits of MSMED Act, but income tax it is very clear. If he is only registered.
नहीं सर, इनकम टैक्स आल्सो स्पीक्स ऑफ माइक्रो एंटरप्राइज एंड स्मॉल एंटरप्राइज,
Where they are registered under the MSMED Act.
But fortunately we'll not get into that discussion because ये 2020 तक ऐसा कानून था, but very fortunately for us 2021 में all these matters traveled up to Supreme Court. Supreme Court ने in the case of Silpi Enterprises has overturned all these high court judgments to say भैया MSME में registered हो तो MSME benefits मिलेगा, MSME में registered नहीं हो तो आपको MSME benefits नहीं मिलेगा. This is thanks to this 29 June 2021 Supreme Court judgment. अगर ये judgment नहीं भी होता, from a strict income tax point of view, आप MSME का reference, you will find it again. I'm getting a little technical. It may be relevant for our tax professionals who are there with us today. Non-tax professionals, don't worry. The conclusion is no MSME registration, no MSME benefits, no 43B disallowance. But just to add on to the reasoning, I'm just highlighting this point under 54GB subsection 6 of the Income Tax Act. वहां पे देखिए सर, वहां पर हमको कैपिटल गेन से डिडक्शन मिलता है इफ आई एम मेकिंग एन इन्वेस्टमेंट इन एलिजिबल कंपनी. एलिजिबल कंपनी का जो डेफिनेशन है सबसेक्शन 6 में दिया गया है, वहां पे तो जो फ्रेज यूज किया गया है, एलिजिबल कंपनी इज अ कंपनी which qualifies to be a micro or small enterprise, which qualifies to be a small or medium enterprise. Sorry, it doesn't say small or medium enterprise. Qualified to be a medium or small enterprise means whether or not you are registered, if you are qualifying to register yourself, you are covered here. But 43B mein the phraseology used is assessee who is a micro or small enterprise, right? So the conscious difference in the language between 54GB and 43B, we can safely conclude to say, boss, if you are qualifying but not registered, you don't get any 43B disallowance hit. Only and only if you are registered, you will get the hit of 43B disallowance. I may have gone a little technical here, but let me summarize this. MSME registration है तो MSME benefits है, 43B disallowance है, MSME registration नहीं है तो 43B disallowance भी नहीं है. We'll take this example. We'll extend.
Sir, one question. Can we surrender our MSME registration?
You can, sir.
Because
you can very well can. मेरे को MSME registration, MSME was supposed to benefit me, but because I'm MSME, people are not buying from me because my industry credit norms is 4 months, 5 months, 3 months.
Yeah, that is the reason.
ही नहीं होता है. तो
Yes,
MSME,
yes.
what was meant to mean a boon has now become a bane. वो sharp हो गया है rather than आशीर्वाद. तो मेरे को if I can get rid of that type, I can go to MSME portal and deregister myself. Okay, I'll just extend this previous example. The services were bought in December 2023. On the date of supply of services, the vendor was not registered on the MSME portal. But subsequently, on 30th March 2024, the vendor has now taken up an MSME registration and he is now supplying me, he is now sending me certificate, hey, I'm an MSME, make payment to me within 45 days, pay me interest at the rate of 20.25%. इस केस में क्या होगा? On the date of supply, I'm not MSME. But today, when I'm demanding payment from you, I'm an MSME. Am I going to be hit by 43B disallowance? Again, very gracefully, very thankfully, Supreme Court has put rest. This has been a controversy. Different high courts have given different judgments on this matter. But Supreme Court has settled all these issues again in the case of Silpi Industries. I think Silpi Industries was a state of Kerala State Road Transportation Corporation. 35-40 page ka judgment hai. Every tax professional should read this judgment because it gives you an in-depth understanding of the MSMED law. So there, Supreme Court has clarified that, boss, your registration will apply prospectively and not retrospectively. As on the date of supply, were you a MSME? If yes, you will get MSME benefit if you have taken a registration subsequent to to your supply, your registration will not travel backwards. It will only travel forward, and therefore you don't have to worry about 43B disallowance. Same as
Only
now
purchases after 30th March will be eligible for it.
all supplies after 30th March is what will be eligible for MSMED benefits and be liable for 43B disallowances. So in our list that we spoke, no, तो हमको vendors का list बनाना है, उसमें से non MSME को निकालना है, उसमें से traders को निकालना है, तो बाकियों का हमको certificate collect करके देखना है कि date of registration क्या है. 99% of the people who are not registered. There's a lot of registrations happening now after all this awareness. So if the registration is happening now, I am liable to make payments within due dates only for supplies made after now. Prior supplies are not covered under 43B disallowances. So the date of registration is also important. So I'll have to keep an eye on that also. मेरा vendor मेरे को अपना registration certificate नहीं दे रहा है. He's only giving me his MSME registration number. आप वो MSME registration number लेके MSME की website में जाके आप check कर सकते हैं. It will give you a detailed drill down कि कब register हुआ, कौन सा status है, if there is a change in status, micro से small हुआ, small से micro हुआ, with dates वो एकदम clearly आपको वहाँ पर मिलता है. Again, biopharma के केस में, शांति कंडक्टर्स के केस में, it's all gone to the conclusion. Again, ये भी एक very important judgment है. This is also something that all of us should read. Gujarat State Civil Supplies Corporation versus Markari Foods Private Limited. It's in continuation of our Silpi Industries Supreme Court का judgment है. Again, a beautiful judgment. We should all give this a read. At least the tax professionals that are over here should give this a read and to get a grip of MSMED Act provisions. Diligent Limited procures security services worth 5 lakhs from Small Safety Private Limited. The balance is still payable on 31st March. Small Safety Limited is a registered small enterprise, but the fact of registration has not been intimated to Mrs. Diligent Limited. Would 43B disallowance apply in this case? Again, this is a raging controversy. WhatsApp group में भी बहुत घूम रहा है. तो क्वेश्चन यहाँ पर ये है, मैंने एक सप्लायर से परचेज किया है. I don't know whether he is an MSME or no. उसके इनवॉइस में, उसके लेटर हेड में उसने कहीं भी नहीं लिखा है कि वो he is an MSME supplier. I have proactively written to him, भैया, if you are an MSME supplier, please please give me your registration details so that I make timely payments to you. उस मेल का भी, उस कम्युनिकेशन का भी उसने रिस्पॉन्स नहीं दिया है. But when my case is picked up for scrutiny, assessing officer को मालूम है कि वो सर्विस प्रोवाइडर MSME है. Would 43B disallowance apply in this case or not? This is a matter which was.
No, sir.
This is a matter which was brought up to the notice of the MSME board also. So way back in 2008, MSME board had come up with this office memo. I'll read this. This is a very critical and important memo, particularly for the auditors. Right? It does a lot of safeguard to our audit community. So I'll give it a read. Apprehensions have been expressed that in the absence of the identification of MSE suppliers on its supply orders, invoices, and other documents, may leave a scope for the buyer to omit their mention in the annual statement of accounts. The auditors, while auditing the annual accounts, may not be able to deduct such omissions from the available documents because of non-availability of identification. The matter has been examined. It is considered advisable that micro and small enterprises should get printed on their letterhead, supply order sheets, invoices, bills, and other relevant documents the entrepreneur's memorandum number. पहले EM number करके होता था, बाद में उद्योग आधार हुआ, अभी उद्यम हो गया. So basically MSME registration number is what they are trying to refer to here. So that there always remains an identification of being a MSE supplier. MSE board ने बोला है कि if you are an MSE supplier, you please intimate this to your vendor or to your customer. If you want to avail the benefits of MSME Act, you have to intimate the fact that you are an MSME to your clients. Otherwise, how are they to know? How are they to judge that timely payments have to be made to you or not? तो पुष्पराज सर, आपको क्या लगता है इस ऑफिस मेमोरेंडम के स्ट्रेंथ पे would I be in a position to argue with my assessing officer कि बॉस मेरे को मालूम ही नहीं वो MSE supplier है? How can you require me to do an act of impossibility? How can I, when I don't know that he is a registered MSE supplier, how can you expect me to make timely payments in accordance with? How can you make me apply MSE provisions to that vendor? Will this
definitely it will be a strong ground of defense, sir.
Strong ground of defense. When it comes to my audit, I think it's a very strong ground. So from a point of view of audit procedures, if I've done all that I can and I've concluded in my tax audit report 43B disallowance not applicable, on the strength of this, I should definitely be able to safeguard my certification. But will the assessee be able to safeguard himself from 43BH disallowance before the assessing officer? I have my doubts, sir. Knowing the way the department always operates, department assessing officer will proceed with a bold assertion in the assessment order. Boss, he's an MSME, he's made supplies, you're not made payment to him within due dates. On a literal interpretation of provision, disallowance has to be attracted. He will proceed with the disallowance and conclude his assessment. That is what is going to happen in practice. We will have to take it up in appeal, CIT appeal, I doubt.
This will be litigation. Litigations.
It is certain litigation. And also on this point, there have been several representations, including from KSCA, to say that, boss, public portal में एक option दे दो ना, मैं PAN डालता हूँ, the way I do for TDS deduction, whether the PAN is operative or non-operative, 206 AB लगता है या नहीं लगता है. The moment I put in the PAN in the IT portal, they tell me whether I have to do 20% TDS or I have to do regular rate of TDS. तो ऐसा ही कुछ public portal में दे दो, wherein from a PAN, I should be able to identify whether the vendor is a MSME vendor or not. And it's in serious discussion at the ministry level also. I think shortly that facility should be made available to us. So if that facility is now made available to us, then I think this argument would stand rested. Uske baad humko is office memorandum ke under mein, I don't think we'll get any defense, and we'll have to be alert. We'll have to do our manual checks at the MSME portal to find out whether the vendor is MSME or not. आपकी व्यू पॉइंट सर?
Yes, sir. Truly, they have to make an window open in MSMED Act where we can identify.
That is believed that it will shortly happen. Presently, I can make a check using MSME registration number. Shortly, they're going to open up a check based on PAN number.
Yes, sir. They will do it, sir. This is the first year. They will improve it.
Let's take our discussion a step further. Now, my vendor is a MSME registered vendor. Okay. But he gives me in writing, I am not registered under MSME, or he gives me in writing, I am registered under MSME, but I exempt you from the provisions of section 16 and section 15 of MSMED Act. I waive my rights under 15 and 16 of MSMED Act within 45 days, make payment within 120 days. I have no objections. Will that save 43B disallowance? Because a lot of them, I see this in WhatsApp groups, a lot of them have advised this, a lot of them are attempting this. But is this a safe bet? Is this the workable stand before the eyes of law? मैंने आपको सप्लाई की है सर, you want 120 days credit. I give you an undertaking. मैं MSME में registered हूँ, but मेरे को 45 days में पेमेंट मत दीजिए, मेरे को 120 days में पेमेंट दीजिए, और आपने मेरे को 120 पेमेंट भी दे दी है, तब 43B डिसअलाउंस लगेगा या नहीं लगेगा?
So here the vendor is defeating the objective of MSME Act. He is registered to get the benefits of MSME, and he's
Precisely, sir. This would be a very dangerous argument to make. In my view, it would be a difficult position to defend before the eyes of law. A private arrangement cannot override legal provision. MSME vendors के benefit के लिए एक पूरा act legislate किया है parliament में, and उस act को आप by a mere private arrangement defeat नहीं कर सकते. This is one line of argument. Second line of argument is, I don't know if we have legal professionals also on this professional forum, they will appreciate this argument better. Law में sir एक doctrine है which is called doctrine of waiver of rights. Doctrine of waiver of rights. So this doctrine says it is within my rights to waive my rights. मेरे अधिकारों को मैं waive करूं, ये मेरा अधिकार है. That is the doctrine of waiver of rights. But then this right to waive my rights has some restrictions. You cannot waive all rights. Rights like right to fair hearing. I will make a written application to the court. See, normally you give 7 days notice before a case is put up for hearing. I waive my right for 7 days. You put up the case for hearing the very next day. Don't give me an opportunity of being heard. It will be an invalid waiver. Waiver of constitutional rights. आर्टिकल 21 बोलता है राइट टू लाइफ, माई लाइफ, मैं 12वें फ्लोर से कूद जाता हूँ, ऐसा नहीं होता है. That would be that's a crime. That's a crime. That would be illegality. So rights, as long as these are contractual rights or personal rights, it is well within my rights to waive them. But a right which impacts the society as a large, which impacts a public policy, cannot be waived in a personal capacity. I individually cannot waive a right which the government has bestowed upon the large section of the society, keeping public interest in mind, keeping public policy in mind. If I do so, such a waiver would be an invalid waiver, and the declaration that I'm giving, don't make me payment within 45 days, make me payment in 120 days, would be an invalid declaration, would be an invalid authorization. It will have no standing in the eyes of law. 43B disallowance will very much get attracted. Or sir, whenever we are taking positions with regards to 43B disallowance, we should not forget that this disallowance is only creating a timing difference. ये permanent disallowance नहीं है. ये permanent disallowance तब हो जाएगा जब I take a tough stand which I don't win in the case of court of law. मान लीजिए इस पॉइंट पे लेके मैंने 43B disallowance मेरे इनकम टैक्स रिटर्न फॉर 23-24 में नहीं किया, राइट? क्योंकि मैंने 23-24 में मैंने डिसअलाउंस नहीं किया है, मैं 24-25 में अलाउंस भी नहीं करूंगा. अगर मैं 23-24 में डिसअलाउंस लेता हूं, इन द ईयर ऑफ पेमेंट दैट इज 24-25, आई वुड हैव टेकन एन अलाउंस आल्सो. बिकॉज़ आई हैव नॉट टेकन अ डिसअलाउंस, देयर वोंट बी अ सब्सिक्वेंट अलाउंस आल्सो. एंड लेट्स से माय 23-24 रिटर्न गेट्स पिक्ड अप फॉर स्क्रूटिनी, व्हिच विल हैपन समवेयर इन जून 2025. Assessment will conclude in March 2026. I will go into appeal, CIT appeal, ITAT, High Court तक जाएगा, तब तक 4-5 साल और बीत जाएंगे. And ultimately, if I go and lose out there, what is the implication? Implication is this temporary disallowance would have become a permanent disallowance. Instead of fighting with the department today, had I agreed for a disallowance in 23-24, at least 24-25 में तो benefit मिल जाता, खाली timing difference होता, खाली interest का मेरे को मार पड़ता क्योंकि मैं टैक्स पहले पे कर रहा हूँ. बट बाय बीइंग अग्रेसिव ऑन अ टाइमिंग डिफरेंस, I potentially run the risk of a permanent disallowance. So, which is where I have to be little cautious in my approach. I have to be very cautious on if it's an item of permanent disallowance, it's always advisable to go ultra aggressive. But when it is an item of timing difference, a temporary disallowance, the general advice is to go a little soft and not go too aggressive. ये वाला सर करेंगे या नहीं करेंगे? दिस इज वेरी हाइपर टेक्निकल. अगर ये वेबिनार नहीं होता, फिजिकल होता, इस स्लाइड के लिए शायद हमको अंडे टमाटर भी, अंडे तो नहीं पड़ते, तेरापति प्रोफेशन है, टमाटर तो जरूर पड़ते. तो अगर आप बोलते हैं तो इसको भी लेते हैं या इसको
So we are at 12:40, we can do it at short.
तो इसको लास्ट में लेते हैं. If time permits, I'll come back to it. It is critical from a tax auditor's point of view, but if it is a mixed audience of non-tax professionals also, I think we'll park this for a later discussion, and we look at some more practical illustrations. तो ये अभी फटाफट करते हैं, थोड़ा टाइम स्पीड पिक करते हैं. टाइम इज रनिंग आउट ऑफ टाइम. So buyer limited has bought services from a micro enterprises for 1 lakh plus GST 18,000. सर्विस का वैल्यू 1 लाख है, इनवॉइस का वैल्यू 1,18,000 है. मैंने टाइम पे पेमेंट नहीं किया है. अभी डिसअलाउंस लाख रुपए का होगा या 1,18,000 का होगा?
1 lakh.
महावीर चोपड़ा जी बोलते हैं 1 लाख.
Which is it to my P&L account, 1 lakh.
हिट टू माय P&L अकाउंट इज 1 लाख. मैंने जिसका अलाउंस लिया है उसी का डिसअलाउंस होगा. 18,000 में बैलेंस शीट में लेके गया हूँ, P&L में नहीं लेके गया हूँ, तो उसका डिसअलाउंस नहीं होगा. इज व्हाट वी वुड वांट टू बी एज द आइडियल आंसर. बट देन सर वी शुड नॉट लूज साइट ऑफ 145A ऑफ इनकम टैक्स एक्ट. 145A हमको क्या बोलता है? वी हैव टू फॉलो इंक्लूसिव सिस्टम ऑफ अकाउंटिंग. ऑल्दो फॉर ऑल प्रैक्टिकल पर्पसेस वी फॉलो एक्सक्लूसिव सिस्टम ऑफ अकाउंटिंग. हमारा P&L अकाउंट एक्सक्लूसिव सिस्टम में ही बनता है. इंक्लूसिव एक्सक्लूसिव इज अ स्लाइटली टेक्निकल टर्म. I'll not worry the other participants over here, but then the end conclusion is it is going to be 1,18,000 and not 1 lakh. Sir, हमारे GST payments के लिए भी हम यही करते हैं ना. If there is a GST outstanding and I don't make a payment before 30th September, I have prepared my books under inclusive system, but I will give impact of exclusive system in my tax computation and I do a 43B disallowance even for GST liabilities. So applying the same
Yes.
logic here, I will have to do a disallowance for the entire invoice amount and not just the supply amount. Udyog Aadhar versus Udyam. This is a very important point of discussion for today. 30th June 2022, we had a shift. So 30th June 2022, tak, something called as Udyog Aadhar used to run. But on 30th June, all those MSMEs who were registered under the Udyog Aadhar regime were required to migrate to now Udyam regime. Udyog Aadhar ceases to exist after 30th June 2022. So if your vendor's registration certificate looks like this, Udyog Aadhar अगर वो सर्टिफिकेट में लिखा है उसका कोई वैल्यू नहीं है, उसको उठा के डस्टबिन में डाल दीजिए. आफ्टर 30th June 2022 को उसको एक्सपायरी डेट होगी है. After 30th June 2022, this has no value. The MSME vendor has to necessarily re-register himself and he has to produce to you what is now called a Udyam registration certificate. So to summarize, if your MSME vendor's registration certificate looks like this, बहुत लोग ये कैरी करके घूम रहे हैं, मैं MSME हूँ, MSME हूँ, MSME हूँ. इस सर्टिफिकेट का कोई वैल्यू नहीं है. इस सर्टिफिकेट से कोई 43B डिसअलाउंस नहीं होगा. इस सर्टिफिकेट से आपको कोई MSME बेनिफिट्स नहीं मिलेगा. इसको कूड़ेदान में डालिए. You have to produce a certificate which looks like this, Udyam registration certificate, right? Non-submission of bills, we've discussed this. Invoice date, yeah, bill submission date will not matter. Date of delivery is what will count, and my meter will start from date of delivery, regardless of when I actually submit my bill. Change in status, again, I'll not spend too much time here. Basically, it is auto-pulled. There's nothing that you have to do about it. आप इनकम टैक्स रिटर्न जैसे ही फाइल करेंगे, आपका टर्नओवर वहां से ऑटोमेटिकली पुल हो जाएगा MSME वेबसाइट में, and they will automatically recategorize you. You can graduate, or they can be a upward change, or they can be a downward change. Both are possible. MSME portal will take care of it by itself. They have complete access to your GST records. They have complete access to your IT records. Cancellation of registration. तो जो June 2020 का notification है, para 9.4 deals with the process and scenarios where a registration can be cancelled. So wherever there is a discrepancy that is found in the Udyam form, or there's a complaint filed, then the registration can be cancelled. And there is a procedure outlined over there. I'll not get into the procedure. But then why I'm discussing this here is, कि भैया, you've exhausted all means. There's a purchase that you made from your vendor. वो आपको चेक वाला जुगाड़ में नहीं करके दे रहा है. He is not letting you raise an objection also, and you are staring at a huge disallowance. As a last resort, what you can try to do is उसका financials निकालो कहीं से भी. If it's a company or LLP, it's available on the public portal. उसका financials निकालो, देखो whether he actually fits into the MSME category. If not, complain to the MSME board and उसका registration ही cancel करा दो. Because while registration will take prospective effect, cancellation will take retrospective effect. I'll repeat, registration prospective है, cancellation will be retrospective. So if it is retrospectively cancelled, you can safeguard yourself from 43B disallowance. थोड़ा extreme scenario बता रहा हूँ, but then again a possible scenario. And then I spoke of verification of the MSME registration status. आप udyamregistration.gov.in के वेबसाइट पे जाइए. यहाँ पर इस लिंक में you can key in the registration number of your vendor and check his current status. Check his current status. As I said, status can keep varying. मेरा पहले टर्नओवर 5 करोड़ के नीचे था, अभी 5 करोड़ के ऊपर हो गया है, जब 50 करोड़ के ऊपर नीचे हो गया है. So that change is reflected on the website on real-time basis. So you can, and they give you history also. तो इस तारीख को ये हुआ, फिर subsequently 5 सितंबर को इसका position ऐसा हो गया. There's a complete timeline given to you that can be made use of for deciding whether 43B disallowance is applicable or not. Very shortly, it is anticipated that here in the same screen you'll have a PAN-based verification also being made available to you. If that comes, I think it will be a big relief to more than the business associates to the tax professionals. From an audit point of view, it will give me greater comfort if I can verify whether the vendors are actually, if I can verify by myself whether the vendors are MSME or not, rather than relying on third-party confirmations. Okay, this is again a slightly technical topic, but I feel relevant even for business SSEs. lot of our small time traders opt for presumptive taxation under 4480. Presumptive taxation क्या होता है? Presumptive taxation ऐसा होता है कि आपका turnover अगर 2 crore के नीचे है, तो then you have an option to declare your income at 6% or 8% of your turnover without maintaining books of accounts, without filing, without having your books of accounts audited. Simplified regime है, presumptive regime हमारे income tax terminology में बोलते हैं. So the query here is, would 43B disallowance be applicable even to income computed under 4480? To give you an example, let's say मेरा 1 crore का turnover है, 8% of 1 crore works out to 8 lakh rupees. Now this is what I would have done until financial year 22-23. I would have reported 8 lakhs as my taxable income, return filed, kissa closed. So the additional fact that I am now supplying to you for 23-24 is that I owe my MSME vendor to the tune of 15 lakhs as on 31st March, which is overdue. So मेरा taxable income for 23-24 would be 8 lakhs, that is 8% of 1 crore, or should I load 15 lakhs on 8 lakhs and say, no, 23 lakhs is my taxable income? 4480 is inclusive of 43B disallowance, or you will compute 4480 and then apply 43B.
Any comment?
This is a matter which had come up before Panji Tribunal in the case of good luck kinetic. Maybe I should say bad luck kinetic. Now, इस case में क्या हुआ? I'll be getting a little technical but relevant for all. The court went into analysis of 44AD and 43B. 44AD starts with a non-obstain clause, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in section 28 to 43C. 43B also starts with a non-obstant clause, notwithstanding anything contained in any other provisions of this act. So both provisions starting with non-obstant clause, there is a fight between two non-obstant clauses here. So this context में which clause wins over the which non-obstant clause? Unfortunate conclusion of Panji Tribunal here was that 43B starts with the non-obstant clause, notwithstanding anything contained in any other provisions of the act, whereas 44AD, notwithstanding anything contained in contrary to section 28 to 43C. So 44AD is overriding a set of sections 28 to 43C. 43B is overriding the entire act. So the amplitude of 43B is much higher, much wider than the amplitude of 44AD, and therefore 43B would override 44AD. In conclusion, Panji Tribunal ने बोला हमको हमारे जो केस हमने डिस्कस किया उसमें 8 लाख रुपए टैक्सेबल इनकम नहीं होगी, 23 लाख रुपीस टैक्सेबल इनकम. So going by Panji Tribunal, the disallowance under 43B has to be taken into account even for presumptive schemes. But then we have a contrary judgment, a judgment to which I would personally subscribe to by Raipur Tribunal, a recent one, 2023 का judgment, in the case of Krishna Kumar Agrawal. इस केस में राइट एक्ट ने बोला भैया उसका कंप्यूटेशन तो देखो, उस कंप्यूटेशन में वो क्या कर रहा है? He is just saying 8% of 1 crore rupees, 8 lakh rupees. इस कंप्यूटेशन में has he at any point of time made any claim for allowances or disallowances? उसने कोई एक्सपेंडिचर क्लेम किया है क्या? जब उसने क्लेम ही नहीं किया है उस कंप्यूटेशन में, where is the question of any disallowance, and therefore disallowance should not be attracted. To sum it up, Panji Tribunal बोलता है your taxable income will be 23 lakh. Raipur Tribunal, which I would also personally subscribe to, बोलता है your taxable income would be 8 lakh. I could get a little more legal into this discussion, but then may not be relevant for our audience today. So we will move on. This is important, sir. ये vendor का account है आपकी screen पे. 1st April को 2023 I have an opening balance of 5 lakh rupees. 1st Jan 2024 को मैंने परचेजेस किया है 5 लाख रुपए, टोटल 10 लाख रुपए आउटस्टैंडिंग है. 5 जनवरी को मैंने 5 लाख रुपए पेमेंट की है, 31 मार्च को 5 लाख रुपए आउटस्टैंडिंग है. 43B डिसअलाउंस लगेगा या नहीं लगेगा?
If we go by FIFO basis लगेगा, if is SME.
FIFO बेसिस में जाएंगे तो लगेगा. अगर मेरे को FIFO में नहीं जाना है सर, मेरे को क्लाइंट को बचाना है सर, अगर 43B डिसअलाउंस नहीं लगने देना है तो the answer to this lies in Contract Act. Contract Act में section 59 बोलता है, basically the question here is the 5 लाख जो पेमेंट हुई है यहाँ पर, this 5 lakh am I appropriating it against this invoice, or this 5 lakh payment am I appropriating it towards my opening balance? Now this right of appropriation under section 59 of Contract Act is given to the payer. Mera right hai. I will instruct. So if with my payment, with my check, if I also give a payment advice to my vendors who say, hey, see, I am making a payment of 5 lakh rupees. This 5 lakh you adjust against the opening balance, or this 5 lakh you adjust against the consultancy fee. Whatever directions I give under Section 59 of Contract Act, that will have to be followed. If I fail to give any direction, then the right gets passed on to the creditor. अगर मैंने खाली चेक दे दिया without specifying इसको किसके अगेंस्ट में एडजस्ट करना है, then the creditor gets the right of appropriation. The creditor may adjust it against the opening balance or towards the current year supply. It's his right. Now, if both have failed to exercise their right, then under Section 61 I have to go to FIFO. ना डेटार ने बोला कि इसको कहाँ एडजस्ट करना है, ना क्रेडिटर ने बोला कि इसको मैं कहाँ एडजस्ट कर रहा हूँ, तो असेसिंग ऑफिसर बोलेगा मैं इसको फीफो लगा. सिंपल वे आउट इज डेटार क्रेडिटर शुड सिट टुगेदर, एक पेमेंट एडवाइस बना के दे दो फॉर ऑल द पेमेंट्स दैट यू हैव ऑलरेडी मेड, कि ऑल द पेमेंट्स दैट आई मेड टू यू इन द करंट ईयर आर फॉर करंट ईयर ट्रांजैक्शन. जो ओपनिंग बैलेंस है ना उसको उठा के साइड में रख लेते हैं, एक नया अकाउंट चाहिए तो खोल के साइड में पार्क कर लेते हैं. लेट अस क्लियर आउट द करंट ईयर ड्यू सो दैट आई एम आउट ऑफ 43B clutches. But that's a positive exercise that you will have to carry out. Your books, if you can demonstrate, अगर आप ledger को split कर सकते हैं, ledger A, ledger B, opening balance, current year transaction, and if we can debit your current year transactions to your current year ledger, the best to do it. If not, at least have payment advices acknowledged by your creditor to say, okay, ये payment current year purchases को adjust हो रहा है, previous year outstanding हमने उसको separately side में park करके रख दिया. Hope this was useful. I'll pause here for any queries that we may have. कुछ extra doubt निकल रहा है तो सर अभी ले लेते.
So, if any participants any note, they can put it in chat box.
Chat box में there's lot of things which has come, but I'm not been able to.
Most of them are explained, and I think.
Yeah, I can see a lot of it getting answered as we've covered our slides. If there is anything left out, maybe towards the end of this, I have maybe a couple of more slides. After that, we'll open up for a specific Q&A session. Would 43B disallowance attract to my depreciation also? That's the question here. तो मैंने मेरे वेंडर से मशीन परचेज की है, मैंने 10 लाख की मशीन परचेज की सर ये साल में, मैंने उसकी पेमेंट नहीं की. 10 लाख डिसअलाउ तो नहीं होगा क्योंकि मैंने 10 लाख पीएनएल में डेबिट नहीं किया है. What can be disallowed is only what I've claimed to be allowable. If there is no claim for allowance, there cannot be a disallowance. Is a conclusion that we've already drawn. So this 10 lakh I've carried to my balance sheet, but at the end of the year, out of the 10 lakh, I've debited 1,50,000 as depreciation to my PNL account. Now this 1,50,000 depreciation, can it be disallowed under 43B is the question. Yes, no, okay. Sir, a similar scenario came up before Karnataka High Court in the case of Tally Solutions Private Limited. तो Tally Solutions Private Limited ने क्या किया था, एक सॉफ्टवेयर परचेज किया था और उसके ऊपर TDS डिडक्ट नहीं किया था. वो सॉफ्टवेयर उसने कैपिटलाइज किया था और उस सॉफ्टवेयर के ऊपर उसने खाली डिप्रिसिएशन क्लेम किया था. And because TDS was not done, assessing officer invoked 40A1A TDS disallowance, what we know now. Wherever I don't deduct tax at source, I am liable for 30% disallowance under 40A1A. वहां पे कर्नाटक हाई कोर्ट ने हमको क्या बोला है कि बॉस रीड व्हाट डज द प्रोविजन से. प्रोविजन बोलता है वी विल डिसअलाउ 30% ऑफ एनी सम पेएबल टू अ रेसिडेंट, राइट. 30% ऑफ सम पेएबल implies there should be a monetary outgo, there should be an expenditure. So what can be disallowed under 40A1A is only an expenditure. Depreciation, sir, in accounting terms as well as in tax terms, is never an expenditure. You don't spend money for depreciation. You spend money to acquire capital asset, but depreciation by itself is not an expenditure, sir. It is a allowance, and that allowance cannot be disallowed under 40A1A was the conclusion drawn by Karnataka High Court. हमारा jurisdictional High Court है and High Court है. मैं ITAT का भी बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, High Court level का बात कर रहा हूँ. That decision should automatically apply to our 43B case also, because here again the phraseology used is very similar. It speaks of disallowance of any sum payable. Depreciation is not a sum payable. Depreciation is not an expenditure. Depreciation being an allowance cannot be disallowed under 43B clause H. Any doubts, sir?
We can move forward.
We can move forward. Hope the discussion is relevant and useful.
Definitely, sir.
Is interest on loan borrowed from micro or small enterprises disallowable under 43B? This is something we have to be very careful about, sir. मैंने loan लिया है. I have taken a loan from a person who is not into any trading, manufacturing or service industry. Doesn't make a difference. But in the course of business, I often end up taking loans from other businesses. And if that business is registered under MSME, would I be hit by 43B disallowables? That's the question here. Interest को भी 43BH लगेगा या नहीं लगेगा? Interest is a compensation for loan taken, and loan by its nature is a service. ये conclusion कहाँ से आता है? आप service tax law देखिए. सर्विस टैक्स लॉ में इंटरेस्ट वाज अंडर एग्जेम्प्ट कैटेगरी. जीएसटी में देखिए इंटरेस्ट को अगेन एग्जेम्पशन नोटिफिकेशन में डाला गया है. इवन इन कमर्शियल पार्लेंस हमारे डेली टर्मिनोलॉजी में लोन इज रेफर्ड टू एज अ फैसिलिटी, क्रेडिट और बोरोइंग इज रेफर्ड टू एज अ सर्विस, एज अ फैसिलिटी, एंड देयरफॉर इट इज tantamounting to rendering of services, and the interest payable, the compensation payable for such services would be hit by 43BH if the lender is a micro or small enterprise. 43BH लग जाएगा, ठीक है. बट ड्यू डेट क्या होगा सर? मेरा मीटर कहाँ से काउंट स्टार्ट होगा? मैंने 1 अप्रैल को लोन बोरो किया है 10 लाख रुपए का. 31 मार्च को मेरे को 1,20,000 रुपए इंटरेस्ट देना है. अभी मैं ये 15 डेज या 45 डेज का मीटर कहाँ से शुरू करूँ? 1 अप्रैल से शुरू करूँ या 31 मार्च से शुरू करूँ?
So we have to see the agreement with the loan provider. How the interest has to be accounted, monthly, quarterly, annually.
Let's say there's no agreement in writing, which is the case with most of our concerns. No? इंटरेस्ट देना है, 12% इंटरेस्ट देना है, बस एवरी ईयर देना है. I have received my loan on 1st of April, sir.
I got it.
I have received my loan on 1st of April. So should I start? And anyways, the maximum credit that I can enjoy under the MSME Act is 45 days. So should I start my meter from 1st April? That will be a dangerous conclusion to draw.
How accounted in books of accounts? What date I have accounted the interest? If there is no
interest
agreement.
Entry I pass annually. 31st March I pass my entry.
Yes. So
But that is
31st
the
March.
date. Yeah, but then for MSME, my 45-day meter has to count from the date of rendering of service or supply of goods. This is not goods for sure. This is a service rendered. So what is the day on which service is rendered? Now, day of rendering of service for the purpose of our discussion would not be the day on which the rendering of service commences. एक छोटा सा दूसरा एग्जांपल लेता हूँ. मैंने अभी मेरे ऑफिस में एसी रिपेयर करने के लिए या एसी इंस्टॉल करने के लिए एक कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को हायर किया. दैट कॉन्ट्रैक्टर हैपेंस टू बी एन एमएसएमई. टुडे संडे को वो आया, साइट इंस्पेक्शन करके गया, मेरे को एक मटेरियल लिस्ट देके गया. ये स्विच बोर्ड मंगा के रखो, ये पाइप मंगा के रखो. ट्यूसडे को आया, इंस्टॉलेशन शुरू किया और वेडनेसडे को कंप्लीट किया उसने. व्हेन इज द सर्विस रेंडर्ड? संडे, ट्यूसडे, नो, वेडनेसडे. The day on which he concludes his service is the day of rendering of services, and it is from that date I have to start my 45-day counter, and not from Sunday, not from the day of starting of rendering of services. 1st of April, when the borrowing is extended to me, that is the start date. We have agreed for a 1-year loan. So when does the service conclude? Service concludes at the end of the term of the loan. 31st March को वो सर्विस रेंडरिंग कंप्लीट होगी, एंड 31st मार्च से मेरे को 15 दिन या 45 डेज या अग्रीड क्रेडिट पीरियड का टाइम लिमिट मिलना चाहिए. इज माय हम्बल अंडरस्टैंडिंग. देयर कुड बी कॉन्ट्ररी व्यूज ऑन दिस, But then this is the most practically feasible understanding that everybody would want to adopt over here. This is what I'm trying to put down in my slide as well. With this, I think we will pause here. We can go on. इसमें issues बहुत निकलते रहेंगे. We will give it a pause. In 5 minutes, we'll take any Q&As, if any, on this particular topic, and then we'll move on to a very broad outline of our budget discussion. हालांकि budget में ज़्यादा कुछ है नहीं. If we can spend too much, little more time on this, I think that will add more value to our time.
So, anybody have any questions? They can speak it up or put it in chat box.
If there's a provision to unmute them and express in.
JST, can you unmute all the participants?
If that is feasible. I think I have the right because I have been made the host.
Yeah, you have been the host. Yes. You can also do it, I think.
Yeah, Pushparaj, I have unmuted.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any doubts, please?
Sir, for a service industry, like you have an MSME Samadhan, sir, can a service industry, which is part of a, let's say, a micro enterprise, approach an MSME Samadhan for some resolution, sir, on non-payment?
Definitely, sir, definitely. And I am told that it is a very, very nice way of getting your payment settled. So, okay, we'll take that up. Although it's not concerned with our core topic of 43B disturbance today. So, इसमें क्या होता है? Section 17 of MSMED Act gives you a right to basically enforce your dues under 15 and 16. And there is a MSC facilitation center. यहाँ पर Bangalore में खनिजा भवन में है, Racecourse Road में. You can walk up to there and file your application. Now, in fact, that application is also gone online. So online में आप आपका application डाल सकते हैं. So as a step one, what they do is they try for conciliation proceeding. So the vendor will also be called upon, the debtor will also be called upon, and there's an effort made to achieve an amicable settlement between the two parties. And if there is an amicable settlement between the vendor and the buyer and the supplier, that is recorded and a formal order is passed by the facilitation center, which is a binding order. Let's say an amicable settlement is not achieved. The MSME board is not in a position to settle the dispute between the parties. Then the matter is referred to an arbitration council. Right? And this arbitration is notwithstanding that arbitration clause is there in your contract. Your contract may provide for international arbitration. Your contract may provide for an arbitration headed by a High Court Justice or a 3-member arbitration panel. Notwithstanding any of it, MSME dispute would go to MSME arbitration panel, and their arbitration award is finally passed, and your payments are to be made immediately. Now, if you are not happy with the conciliation proceeding or the arbitration proceeding, as a vendor, the only recourse that you have is to file an appeal against the order that the MSME board has passed. Before doing that, 75% of the amount in consideration, 75% of the disputed amount has to be deposited with the MSME board in a escrow account, and only then you can go and file an appeal. तो 100 रुपए का अगर झगड़ा है and 75 का प्री डिपॉजिट करके आपको सिविल कोर्ट में जाना है, where matter will drag for years together, you would rather make an out-of-court settlement and pay off your debtor. So it's a very effective recovery mechanism which one can explore for dues not being received from the vendors. So ये MSME वाला provision जो हमने अभी तक discuss किया है, we have discussed it purely from the angle of me making payment to my vendors. But analyze this from the point of view of you collecting payments from your customers also. It's a very effective tool. Those of you who are not registered under MSME, do consider, also take into account the other business aspects into consideration. Do consider registering yourself under MSME board. There are a host of benefits attached to it. This is the timely payments, interest, conciliation, arbitration, the reduced lending rates from banks. There are some promotion schemes from the central government, state government, time to time, some subsidies keep coming. So it's a good area to explore. Probably Theravati Profession Forum can have a separate session on the benefits available to MSME. it's a more than 1 hour session. It's a big list of benefits that you are entitled to if you are registered as an MSMED.
Thank you, sir. But interestingly, sir, we filed delay of payment in the Samadhan, and after being called for the, as you said, on the table on the negotiation part, when they called us, they tell us on the face there that you being the service industry, the capital is not meeting, etc. You are supposed to, this is not the right forum for a non-payment failure here. So we were also a little surprised. So then we had to go with a other legal route than the MSME Samadhan. So hence this query was asked to you, sir.
Sir, I am not an expert on MSME laws. I have read MSME laws for the first time thanks to 43BH. But from the limited understanding that I have attained out of reading the MSME regulations, I believe your case should fit into it. If it is not, then probably you should consult an expert, a legal expert in this field who can guide you better on this.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Another 2 minutes for any questions from the audience. I think most of the questions have been answered, sir, by your slides and examples.
Well, I always tell this to my students. जब भी students को session लेते हैं, questions नहीं आता है तो either it is fully understood or it is fully not understood. I hope it is not the latter and it is the former. But
it's fully understood.
I will.
You made us understand in a layman's language.
I hope so. I have achieved that. But then let me quickly also, because the agenda for today also spoke of budget 24. I will spend a couple of minutes. मैं बहुत ज़्यादा time नहीं लूँगा on a Sunday afternoon. I understand Sunday afternoon time is family time. It's the most precious time for all of us. But then very quickly, in maybe just a couple of minutes time, I will run through budget 24. Is this visible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So after having had a heavy dose of 43B, I'll keep things light. I will not bore you with all these jargons of macroeconomics, GDP, unemployment rate, inflation. I will skip on all of these and I will straight away come to some of the tax proposals in the budget, which are possibly relevant or may have some academic interest to you. I believe not many of these have any practical implications in our daily practice or our daily business, but then from an academic interest, let's go through the budget proposals for FA 2024. So one very good proposal that came out of this year's budget is there are a lot of legacy issues for which there are some demands being raised by the department. Na department के पास उसका case file है, ना SSC के पास record है, वो बस खींचे चले जा रहा है. Every year March में एक demand notice आता है, एक recovery notice आता है. We go to the department, we make a request for records, we tell them we don't have records. वहाँ पे CPC से अलग adjustment का 245 intimation आता रहता है. Refunds keep getting adjusted. It's a total mess. It's a utter mess. So they have realized that this is a mess arising out of the legacy system, wherein everything was paper-based and it was not digitized. So realizing that, what they have said now is all those demands up to financial year 9-10. When financial year 9-10 has been consciously chosen because financial 9-10 से हमको 26 years आने लगा सर. 9-10 से पहले हमको 26 years भी नहीं था. कई बार ऐसा हुआ है मेरे पास टैक्स चलान है और असेसमेंट ईयर 2003-2004 उनके सिस्टम में रिफ्लेक्ट नहीं हो रहा है. अभी वो कहाँ मिस्टेक हुआ, बैंक से मिस्टेक हुआ, डिपार्टमेंट के सर्वर में मिस्टेक हुआ, there is absolutely no answer to it. So thankfully they have acknowledged this and they have said 9-10 के पहले के जो भी डिमांड्स है 25,000 के नीचे वाले डिमांड्स हम उसको राइट ऑफ करें, हम उसको हमारे सिस्टम से निकाल रहे हैं. We will not chase those demands, we will not adjust those demands. हम उसको माफ कर रहे हैं. 9, 10 से 14, 15 तक के डिमांड्स जो कि 10,000 के नीचे है, हम उसको भी राइट ऑफ कर रहे हैं. Now, when they say 25,000 and 10,000, are they referring to the principal or principal and interest is something we'll have to wait and watch. ये खाली बजट स्पीच में दिखा है, फाइनेंस एक्ट में इसका डिटेल नहीं आया है. हाउ इज इट गोइंग टू बी इम्प्लीमेंटेड? सीबीडीटी 119 में एक ऑर्डर पास करेगा या एक सेपरेट नोटिफिकेशन आएगा? Those specifics are not yet available to us. I will have to go and make an application, or government will write it off by itself suo motu without an application. All of that we don't have much clarity, but yet I would say this is a welcome move, and I would hope that the write-off of 25,000 that they are referring to is principal and not interest. Doesn't include the interest. So if the principal demand is less than 25,000, they will write off the entire demand, including the interest, which would now have become 60, 70, 80,000 rupees. That's my hope. And another important point that I could make note of in the finance minister's speech is कि इस राइट ऑफ से 1.1 crore SSCs को बेनिफिट होने वाला है. Now, if you look at the income tax statistics, there are only 6.6 crores tax filers. तो गवर्नमेंट by itself is acknowledging कि हर 6 में से एक SSC का कोई लेगेसी इशू है जो आज तक भी रिजॉल्व नहीं हुआ है. So that is the state of our income tax proceeding, income tax affairs. But we are moving towards the good. Now things are digitized, records are available online. 26 AS में मेरे को सब दिखता है. ITR intimation मेरे को online मिलता है. मेरा IT return का copy मेरे को online मिलता है. Things are moving towards the good, and this write-off announcement by the government, I would say, I would call it a welcome move. I think this was the biggest takeaway that as common tax SSCs that we had from this year's budget announcement. Then there are a bunch of provisions which were expiring on 31st of March 2024, like 10.4D, 10.4F, 80LA. All these have to do with, units set up under International Financial Services Center, Gift City, Surat mein jo hai na. So there are a bunch of conditions that you have to satisfy to avail these exemptions and deductions. One of them being that you should start your business before 31st March 2024. Now that sunset clause, that deadline of 31st March 2024, they have extended it by 1 more year to say, okay, if you've not been able to start before 31st March 2024, start by 31st March 2025. कोई problem नहीं है. Similarly, we have 80 IAC startup का benefit. So your eligible startup is a business entity which is incorporated after 2016, but before 2024, 31st March 2024 was our cutoff for startup. उसको भी 1 साल का extension दे दिया है. तो उससे 31st March 24 में start नहीं किया, 31st March 2025 तक start कर लो, you will still be eligible for 80 IAC benefit. Then there are a bunch of provisions, 92CA, 144C, which spoke of transfer pricing assessments, DRP proceedings. I'll not get too technically into it. These all spoke of faceless assessment. उसको faceless करने के लिए गवर्नमेंट को 31st March 2024 तक का डेडलाइन था उसके रिगार्डिंग गाइडलाइंस इशू करने के लिए. 253, 255 speaks of ITAT proceeding. ITAT proceeding को भी faceless ऑनलाइन करने की का प्रपोजल 2 साल पहले बजट में आया, and government was given a deadline of 31st March 24 to come up with detailed regulations and guidelines. उसको भी 1 साल के लिए defer किया गया है. Now, out of all these deferrals that they have made, there is one very important provision where they have not extended the 1 year period. 115 BAB, sir. Pushparat sir, आप appreciate this better. If you are a manufacturing entity wanting to claim 15% reduced rate of tax, your deadline was 31st March 2024. That they have not extended, sir. I don't know if it was a conscious decision not to extend or it was an accidental miss. Will they take it up in the next full-fledged budget and extend that date also or no? But the way things stand now, if you're a manufacturing unit wanting to claim 15% concessional tax rate, you have to commence your manufacturing operations before 31st March 2024, or else you will lose out on that concessional 15% rate of tax. So with this, I think I would want to conclude. इसमें भी TCS में भी एक amendment आया है, basically not an amendment. So last year के बजट में, Finance Act 23 के बजट में, they had tweaked the TCS rates on foreign remittances. It was made applicable from 1st of June, and then they realized कि नहीं बहुत harsh हो गया. 30th September को they came up with a circular diluting those TCS provisions, and 1st October से वो लागू हुआ. उस सर्कुलर को उन्होंने अभी लीगल रिकग्निशन दिया. So that circular has now been incorporated into the act. So there's no change in the TCS rates. What we are presently seeing, the same TCS rates continues, just that the circular has now been given a statutory recognition. It has now been incorporated into the act itself. The TCS rates are there before your screen. I'm sure it wouldn't. It would be a little too heavy for me to explain all of these now. But then the main point is status quo on TCS has been maintained by incorporating the circular provisions into the section. Right, sir. So with this, I think I have concluded with my share of slides. If there is anything else that I can contribute to this forum, I would be happy to do so. Otherwise, I thank the organizers. I thank my participants for the very patient hearing. I thank the organizers for having invited me, and a special thanks to Pushparaj sir for having introduced me to this forum and having stayed along with me throughout this session.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure, sir. Pleasure with you.
Over to the organizers.
Yeah, thank you, Deepak ji. So it was really a great session, and would like to appreciate to you, sir, for taking your time from the busy schedule and making this webinar a success. So I hope and believe that all the participants have gained insights and had a deep dive case-to-case session on the impact of Section 43BH of Income Tax Act on transactions with micro and small enterprises. So with this, I would like to request Dimple ji to take over for vote of thanks.
Sadar Jai Jinendra. It was a very knowledgeable session by Deepak sir, and he had been on again and again throughout his session, made sure that the language he uses, the concepts he's explaining is for the layman's in the layman's language. He kept explaining it again and again in that way. Thank you so much. A special thanks to the South Zone President Mohitji Bed for his presence in this webinar. And very much thank you to all the participants who had been attending this event and putting forward your queries and getting your answers. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward that आप लोग आगे भी इसी तरह जो भी हमारे programs रहेंगे, you all be a part of this TPF events. And thank you so much, everybody, once again.
Om Aram. Okay, sir. Thank you, Deepak sir. We've concluded this session. Thank you very much for your time, sir.